Good morning. My name is Sarah Moynihan, and I am the social media program coordinator at the Institute for Neuro-Immune Medicine here at Nova Southeastern University. I'm joined by Irina Rozenfeld, board certified nurse practitioner at the Institute for Neuro-Immune Medicine Clinic, assistant professor at the Dr. Kiran C. Patel College of Osteopathic Medicine, and adjunct faculty at the Ron and Kathy Asaph College of Nursing at Nova Southeastern University. Irina will also be moderating today's Q&A session. We would like to welcome everyone to the 2021 conference, Understanding ME/CFS Today, a Clinical and Research Approach. We will be having two 10-minute breaks scheduled at 11:50 a.m. and 1 o'clock p.m. If you notice within your control panel, there is a Q&A tab. If you have any questions during the presentations, feel free to type it in within that section. This conference will be recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel within the coming days. We will have a live Q&A portion at the end of this webinar, and our presenters will do their best in answering your questions. I want to thank everyone again for joining us today, and I will begin by introducing our first speaker, the director of the Institute for Neuro-Immune Medicine, Dr. Nancy Klimas. Dr. Klimas is the Dean of Research and Professor of Medicine at the Dr. Kiran C. Patel College of Osteopathic Medicine and Chair of the Department of Clinical Immunology at Nova Southeastern University. She established the Institute for Neuro-Immune Medicine back in 2012, and in partnership with the Miami Veterans Affairs Medical Center's Gulf War Illness Research Program, the INM is a multidisciplinary research and clinical institute that takes a systems biology approach to understanding complex medical illnesses such as ME/CFS, or as we know it as ME/CFS, and Gulf War illness. Dr. Klimas is Professor Emerita at the University of Miami's Miller School of Medicine, a diplomat of the American Board of Internal Medicine, a diplomat in diagnostic laboratory immunology, and director of clinical immunology research at the Miami Veterans Affairs Medical Center. She has achieved national and international recognition for her research and clinical efforts in multi-symptom disorders, including ME/CFS and Gulf War illness. She is the past president of the International Association for CFS and ME, and a past member of the Health and Human Services CFS Advisory Committee. I will now hand it over to you, Dr. Klimas.
Thank you very much. Let me make the right desktop thing pop up here. Here we go. Great. And then I go to slides. Does that look right on your screen? Everything good? Okay. So anyway, thank you very much for letting me be the first speaker in this conference. I think that many of you have been to our conferences before. We do one every year. In the last 2 years, they've been entirely virtual. But this year is a special year because it's the first year that we've been aware that there's a long COVID illness that is going to be very important, I think, to all of us and trying to better understand these illnesses. And I'll be explaining a little bit about that. So, see, that's the same picture. How about that? For those of you that aren't familiar with our institute, we're a great big group, and we're entirely all in on trying to understand these complex medical disorders like ME/CFS, the long COVID illness, and also Gulf War illness. There are three main illness focuses right now, and what's common about all three of those is the role of neuroinflammation or chronic inflammatory drive in these illnesses. So we are going to try to help you and have been helping you for a long time. It's a great big group. This is our team. I didn't update this slide. Yes, I did. So mention our new members. I'm sure you're studying all these names carefully, but I'm going to be talking about the general groups here that we're a clinical group. We do clinical research. We have systems biology, which is our computational modeling group that models these complex illnesses and comes up with new treatment strategies. The laboratory is amazing. It does a lot of biomarker discovery work in addition to allowing us to use those biomarkers and others in our clinical practices. We have animal modeling, and we are very actively training the new generation of doctors and researchers. Where our mission is to integrate clinical, research, and educational missions together into an integrative program that moves our knowledge forward. That's basically it. And we provide compassionate care and model and teach clinical care in this clinical setting. I'm not going to go over the case definition for newbies, but the ME/CFS has a case definition, unlike long COVID, which doesn't really have a case definition yet. But it basically is an illness of profound fatigue that lasts more than 6 months, that's made worse by exercise, is not improved by rest, and has an overlay of cognitive and or orthostatic intolerance, cognitive problems, and autonomic problems. Long COVID is an illness that needs a case definition. There's a lot of them right now in the literature, but it seems to be broadly overlapping with the ME/CFS case definition. Only we are trying to capture it much earlier in the course of the illness. So this one captures it just 4 weeks after the acute illness instead of waiting 6 months. And just for those of you that ME/CFS that haven't been watching the long COVID story, these are the types of symptoms that long COVID patients are presenting with. And by far, fatigue and muscle weakness is the #1 symptom. But sensory problems, chest pressure, pain, dyspnea, palpitations, headaches, cognitive complaints, neurologic signs. Really, the only thing that doesn't overlap all that much is the taste and smell problems, which is, of course, damaged by the acute COVID infection at the level of the nerve endings. So in long COVID, what we're seeing, and I think it's kind of important because I think we're missing the boat a little bit in ME/CFS if we're not watching this, is that while long COVID may be affecting about 10% of people who have had acute COVID, and you know how many millions of people in this country have had acute COVID. So these are big numbers. But in this group that's over 70, perhaps as many as 22% have persistent symptoms. So I think we often miss the boat with elderly patients, and we need to pay closer attention to that. And like ME/CFS, women are more prone to it than men, but it's not exclusive. So what I'm suggesting we do in this, for the long COVID people, until we have a nice grounding in science to help us, is build on what we already know from ME/CFS. And that's probably about what I'm going to say about long COVID in this talk, because this is an ME/CFS conference. But I want to reinforce that there have been decades of work to understand what is ME/CFS, that we understand it as a multi-system illness with mediators coming from the brain, the immune, hormone regulatory pathways, as well as intracellular mechanisms and bioenergetics, the energy within the cell. And the result of that has been some significant progress advancing to interventions in our basic understanding of what's going on in ME/CFS. So let me introduce the team. Wow, this slide got Sylvia kind of crookedy, sorry about that. And this is the team, but we got another page 2 here because I'm going to introduce the new team. And Denise, your name disappeared from underneath. This slide did something weird. This is Denise. She's one of our nurse practitioners. She's been working with us for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years now. And a lot of the veterans in our program would recognize Denise because she's also helping see a lot of the veterans that are referred into our program. Irina Rozenfeld, who is a nurse practitioner and received her doctorate about 1 year ago. It's almost her anniversary date for her doctorate. So she's wears a lot of different hats in our program, but she's a clinician in our program. Dr. Bested is the chair of the integrative medicine department at NOVA and has gone a long way to help us use integrative medicine practices within our clinic and expand the modalities that we have available to treat our patients. She's also finally been able to take her Canadian license and move it to Florida. So she's going to be starting seeing patients actually this next couple weeks. So yay, Alison's going to join the clinical team, as she's been leading the clinical team for a while now. Violetta Renesca is also a person who received her doctorate a little more than 2 years now. It's been for her nurse practitioner that's running a lot of different elements of our program and has helped establish the Veterans Healthcare Program. Dr. Irma Ray, my buddy for many, many decades. I won't say how many years that Irma and I go back, but we go all the way back to medical school. And she's been working with me first at the University of Miami and then moved with me at Nova more than 10 years ago. So we're doing a lot of work together. She has a real focus on environmental illness, which is the role of the environment, like mold toxicity and other types of toxins in the environment and your health. And then there's our kick-ass good team at the front desk and the medical assistants and research assistants that are helping see you and get you into our clinic. Our new clinicians, Dr. Junco is in the wings here. She's going to be giving a talk today. She and I go back because she worked with me at the University of Miami in a different role, but she since has added additional training, and she comes with an expertise in Oriental medicine and acupuncture, and she started her practice with us. And Dr. Fornos, many of us are sadly missing Dr. Vera, who left us last summer to move to South Carolina. And Dr. Fornos joined our practice. She is also a functional medicine certified clinician like Dr. Vera, and she has been with us a couple months now, and we're just so excited that she's joined our team. So we are, I think, perhaps the largest clinical ME/CFS practice in the country. I think that might be fair to say, with some amazing expertise and a lot of interdisciplinary work within our group. This is a busy slide, but I put it up because I want to underscore how complicated ME/CFS is and how many layers of the onion we are dealing with when we're treating ME/CFS. We're dealing with inflammation. We're dealing with bioenergetics, energy in the cells. We're dealing with viral reactivation and antiviral function. We're dealing with mast cell activation. This is the cell that causes allergic reactions when they all go off at once, but when they're just leaking all the time, they cause a lot of chronic misery, and we see a lot of that. We deal with a lot of too much adrenaline, called hypercholinergic state, which is a kind of dysautonomia, and it really messes up the balance of the systems, the sympathetic and parasympathetic system. We see hormone dysregulation, and we see poor sleep quality. And these are all very important components that we're teasing out. I could have kept on going because nutrition is a big deal. We measure a lot of nutritional factors, not just the energy factors, but other nutrients that you need to have good cell function and health. So there's a lot going on in an ME/CFS patient, and that's why you need a team that can deal across a lot of different types of systems. So that's why we have this interdisciplinary team with our 9 clinicians now practicing precision medicine, environmental medicine, integrative and functional medicine. I didn't mention Dr. Barry, an osteopath that's in our group 1 day a week doing osteopathic manipulation. These are all very useful modalities. We have an exercise physiologist, Jeff, who's I think going to be speaking today, who helps us understand better the threshold for safe exertion and reconditioning without driving relapse. We have our laboratory named for Marianne Fletcher, who retired last year, the Fletcher Diagnostics and Discovery Laboratory, which has a very sophisticated laboratory that can measure many domains of this illness and a biomarker level. I think it's one of the things that makes our clinical practice unique, is our ability to really dive deep into the biomarkers of this illness. We also have additional biomarkers we measure, looking at toxins, nutrients, oxidants, antioxidants, microbiome, and these types of things. Again, this is that precision medicine where you really get a sense of what's going on in each individual patient, and then work to develop a personalized plan of care. And coming soon, new modalities. So we just had Dr. Junco join us, who's going to be adding acupuncture and other modalities to our care. And we have functional nutrition that we're able to use through referrals. And we're hoping to further expand our integrative medicine practice and develop tracks that are sort of intensive recovery tracks that would help our patients in other ways. But in addition to all this clinical care, we are advancing knowledge, and we are very much a dedicated research group. As you saw, we have this very large group. We have a unique team of laboratory scientists and computational biologists, and they're able to do the kind of bench work that can then give us translational research. In other words, we can take what people learned in the laboratory and move it on to patient care by virtue of having a clinical trials program that allows patients to enroll in our studies and test whether or not the new interventions that our science would say would be working would be helpful. So much of our focus has been on untangling the underlying mediators. And then we have a moonshot program that I'm going to be referring to shortly, so I won't describe it right now. But we're using this to move on our discoveries on and help people as rapidly as we can. So this is kind of what it's like to be a scientist. And this is you submit 13 grants, you get 3. Getting 3 is really exciting, but we did a lot of work to get those 3. We had to submit 13. So this is like the normal kind of grind that there is to try to do clinical research and laboratory-based research at the level we would like to. We have this massive grant pending that we should have heard about last week, but haven't heard back yet. That's a post-COVID sequela study that we hope to get funded, but you know, it's a long shot, but let's hope. We really worked hard and we wrote a hell of a good grant. All in all, we have more than 15 federal awards right now. I think we have 16. We have 3 internal grants from the university. We have worked very diligently to work up a donation pot so that we can do projects that we haven't been able to get funded. This is typically the ME/CFS space because it's very, very difficult to get funded for clinical trials work in ME/CFS. We can do the basic science and we can generally get that funded, but we really have trouble getting, because there's no program announcement for clinical trials in ME/CFS. It's very difficult to move that through a federally funded path. But we try, we keep on trying. But at the moment, we're really amazing. We have more than $22 million in federal funding across these different research areas that we do. I think that makes us one of the top research groups in the country, if not the top. And we're working hard. This is just one example because I have too short a time to brag on everybody, but I was going to brag on Lubov as an example because she's amazing. She's the lead of our genomics team. And you can see that in 2020, she published multiple papers, did a number of different studies. 2021, and we're not even halfway through that. She's already got a fantastic amount of work going on. And she's one example of one of our teams. And so we will have Lubov, who's leading the genomics team, and we have Maria Abreu and Christina Enle, who are leading the laboratory immunology group. We have Travis Craddock leading the computational biology group. We have several members doing animal modeling right now, Lewis and Alex. And in addition to our amazing clinical research group and our clinicians, it's all integrated together. And it's such a vibrant working space to get the basic scientists so excited about how their work can be moved right into clinical care and helping people, that it's highly motivating to work in this kind of atmosphere. So I'm going to focus on this first study a really important study. A lot of you guys asked questions about this study. This is our moonshot, where we're trying to reboot the homeostatic networks of all these different systems that have gone a little out of sync, and see if we can reboot the immune, the endocrine, and the central nervous system back into a homeostatic network that's normal and making people healthy again. So we've done a lot of work, and this is the basic concept, that you can take a healthy person in this little well of homeostasis where your immune, endocrine, and neuro system work well. And if you have, say, COVID, and you start to crawl up this mountain of unwell, if you're lucky, you rolled right back down here when you got healthy, when you got over it. But if you're unlucky, you'd climb the mountain and you jumped into one of these other wells, and now you're stuck, and you're stuck in this homeostatic, sick point of unwellness, but it doesn't change very much. It's very hard to climb back up this mountain spontaneously. You have to think about it with these computational models that we do of how do we make the system uncomfortable enough to want to crawl up the mountain and fall back into its old path. That's basically the idea behind our homeostatic reboot study. So, you know, supercomputers and amazing scientists cranked out an awful lot of data. Many of you were in our studies where you got on a bicycle and we drew your blood 8 times in just 4 hours and measured every gene that got turned on and off, every cytokine that was expressed, every hormone that was released, to give the data to the computational team to try to understand the mechanism of relapse and how we might be able to protect people from this chronic relapsing condition. So this happens to be Gulf War slide, but with a similar one for chronic fatigue, where any one trick we did didn't work. But if we were able to quiet inflammation and then reboot the neuroendocrine adrenal axis, the adrenaline system and the cortisol system, then we were able to create a state that's chronically healthy in the computer. And then we did it in the Gulf War illness mouse successfully and made a bunch of healthy little mice that were chronically ill. And now in Gulf War illness, we're in our second phase 1 human study, and we're funded to move it on to a phase 2 clinical trial. It's exactly where we want to be with ME/CFS. We had raised enough money to start that study right before COVID. We literally were launching. We'd hired the nurse. We had the protocol. We were ready to go. And then we got stopped because of COVID, as did all the research in the country. So I think anyone that reads the paper would know that this past year was a wicked bad year for clinical trials, and particularly clinical trials that were manipulating the immune system. It wasn't necessarily the safest thing to do to try to quiet inflammation, which could potentially dim your anti-COVID response, and then start a trial like that right in the middle of a pandemic. So we got stopped, and we are getting released. I went in front of the IRB and they asked me to change the protocol so that only vaccinated people were coming into the protocol. And so we're going back in front of the IRB this coming month, with any luck, if we're not bumped off their path. And certainly by the end of July, we should have an approved protocol and be back in the business of doing this study. This slide's actually showing that we've done such sophisticated work that we can tell the difference in our models between men and women, premenopausal women and postmenopausal women. And we have an interventive strategy for each of these kinds of times in your lifespan. And so this initial study that we're starting is in postmenopausal women and in men. We submitted a project to the NIH to do premenopausal women, and they turned us down, and we have to resubmit it. So that one's on the back burner for the moment while we revise and resubmit. So I'm getting some questions asking about how you get into trials. And I think that if you would look at the slide that Sarah put up, there's our website and there's our trial site, and you just need to go onto our website and go to the research page and just let people know that you're interested. And there's a registry and a link there for that so that we can know who you are and go back and find you. So this is my slide that shows our study. We put people on the bike. We drew a lot of blood. We gave it to our amazing computational biology team. They applied chaos theory and came up with models of dynamic models of the illness that allowed us to intervene at different points in time. Discovered that any one point was never good enough. You couldn't treat this illness in just one spot. Like you couldn't get away with just inflammation. You had to treat at least 2 spots, like the endocrine system and the immune system, before you got any kind of reboot potential. We did the animal work. Now the downside with ME/CFS is we don't have animals. So We don't have an animal model. Our group is working on the animal model. We were funded through private donation to do that. And that's work is well underway. We're optimistic that we'll have an animal model. But if we have an intervention that allows us to use a safe drug that's already out there, as we do, then we can go to the human immediately, as long as the protocol that we're envisioning is a safe strategy. Then we go ahead and get to the phase 1 clinical trial, which is the spot where we're stuck waiting for the COVID release. But as soon as we're released from it, then we're ready to go. We treat people, we put them back on the bike, and then see whether or not it worked, whether or not our model of the illness rebooted back to a normal homeostatic balance. Hang on a second, my computer won't advance. There we go. So that's just one of our studies. I bring it up because you all are always asking about it, but I have to say we're at the point we were a year and a half ago because of COVID, but we anticipate being released from our COVID stop at any moment, and then we'll be able to move on. And as I said, we're funded to do, it's private funding, and I shouldn't say we're all the way funded, but we're mostly funded, but partially funded to get the men's study underway and the postmenopausal women through private donation. We're always happy to accept more donations because it really helps us get this stuff going. Now, we have a lot of other studies, and I didn't want you to think we're doing just one study. The gene study is one that's always ongoing. It's on our website. You can go on there. You can donate your 23andMe data or your Ancestry.com data, and we get a lot of information about your genome that way. But we're also using that platform, whether or not you donate your gene data, to have a handle on how people are doing. It's a longitudinal study. And right now, using that platform, we're just about to launch a COVID vaccine response study to see how our ME/CFS patients tolerated COVID vaccine. We actually have heard of some people who seem to improve the way some of the long COVID people did, which would suggest that the vaccine is inducing an improvement in the immune system that's antiviral in a more broad way, and not just getting an anti-COVID response. So we have a microbiome study. It's just about to launch. This is an exciting study because it's entirely virtual, and we do it. We'll be communicating by sort of telehealth basis, plus providing your intervention by mail. We're really excited about this study, and we hope people will sign up. It's ME/CFS patients who have IBS versus ME/CFS patients who don't have IBS. That's who we're studying, with a remarkable probiotic that's only available in Europe that has a very unique formulation and some things you simply can't get in this country. So it's exciting that we're going to get to finally launch that study. It also had a COVID hold, and we're finally released from our COVID hold. So that's exciting. The natural history study.
Just to let you know, there's 2 more minutes remaining. Okay.
Yeah, I'm almost at the end.
Okay.
So thank you for that. Natural history study. Anyone walks through our clinic as a patient, we beg you to sign this permission form, because it lets us use your de-identified data in your clinic chart to better understand the illness. And it also lets us store any leftover blood if we draw blood and use it for science. So, and under that, we're also looking at whether or not there's an immune response to these vaccines out there, what I was just describing. So we're trying to get volunteers that are in our clinic who haven't been vaccinated yet to let us draw some blood before and after they're vaccinated to see what their immune system did. And there's several others. I'm going to move on because of time. This is our big long haulers or long COVID study with $4 million study funded by the CDC that's going to follow 2,000 people in South Florida who have symptoms post-COVID and 200 people who are recovered, and then bring in a couple hundred of those in for a phenotyping study where we do a lot of intense work. And so our future research is to keep going, get the funding to move this on, the basic science on, keep improving our models, keep improving and increasing the size of our team. We have a visiting professor, Dr. Thea Herrera, joining us this summer, who's a mast cell expert, a world-renowned, internationally renowned mast cell expert who will be working with us for the coming year. So we'll be able to do a lot more work down that path. Very exciting time. So see, it is my last slide. Haha, Sarah. These are my summer interns. That's Talia, my little 1-year-old grandbaby, and Callie, my almost 7, turning 7 this week. And they have been so interesting to try to work at home and still get anything accomplished when they're flying in and out of the venue all the time. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Klimas. Our next speaker is the clinic's nurse practitioner, Irina Rozenfeld. Irina is a board certified nurse practitioner committed to the health of her patients. She obtained second master's degree in integrative medicine at George Washington University, and more recently earned her doctorate in nursing practice from the University of North Florida. Irina's focus at the INM includes ME/CFS, chronic infections, vector-borne illnesses, metabolic syndrome, chronic pain, environmental issues, detoxification, and autoimmune diseases. I will now hand it over to you, Irina.
Good morning, everyone. Did my slides shown well? Sarah?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, good morning. And I choose my topic today to talk about role of the sleep in the control of the symptoms in ME/CFS. And also, it's a really common symptoms in post-COVID illness. And it will be, I'm gonna try to explain the reason for this symptom to be one of the major, and maybe some idea how to control and evaluate it. I hope I'm not gonna make you bored with my presentation. And this is not a problem only for patients with ME/CFS. There is significant epidemiological study shown that 1 in 3 Americans sleeping less than 7 hours per night. And there is a lot of social pressure with work. We actually, there is a statistics through last year due to pandemic, in general society have a little bit more time for sleep because we were not commuting a lot. There are also a lot of comorbid or primary sleep conditions, and patients who show up in our clinics with chronic fatigue syndrome, we may have unrefreshed sleep as a major symptoms in chronic fatigue illness, but we also can have primary sleep disorders, sleep apnea, insomnia, restless leg syndrome, and there is also autoimmune neurologic conditions which present with hypersleep, prolonged sleep, and like narcolepsy. There is a growing number of people who are suffering from this illness. And problem with sleep really contributes to many chronic disorders, including cardiovascular and neurodegenerative disorders. Sleep is not the time when you just in coma. So at night, it's a very important biological time in your body. The major body organs, your brain, your liver, they have a lot of tasks to conduct while you're sleeping. And there is a particular very interesting and complicated architecture of the sleep, which you should have. And if there is some abnormalities, then we see symptoms. We can measure, we can collect objective data about sleep, which we always do and ask and encourage our patient to have this study done. There is an electroencephalogram, we can measure in the laboratory where we usually send you to neurologists for sleep studies. We can measure your waves of brain activity, eye movements, muscle tone, and of course, polysomnogram, which measure your breathing and heart activity. The main point we look in when you sleep, there is a non-rapid eye movement stages and rapid eye movement stages. I put it with simpler for you. So we are looking in a REM when it's rapid eye movement stages. This is a dreaming time. It's not a deep sleep, but it's really important for you. Your dreaming time, this is what you at night, you deal with emotions of your daytime. And sometimes, like we're saying, sleep on it. With dreaming and sleeping on some problem, next morning make this problem disappear. Another really important part on this slide, your deep sleep, which has 3 different stages, and the entry is the most deep stage. And here on this slide, you can see there is this oscillation with the stages, but also kind of it's cyclical. Every person has its own personal cycle style, and there is 90 minutes per cycle when you go from REM sleep, from non-REM and REM sleep. And with 90 to 110 minute cycles, we repeat through the night 4, 5, sometimes 6 times. That is important if you person who has with 5 cycles and you complete with 5 cycles between 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the evening by 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's okay. And you got it 24 hours, your circadian rhythm well, and you in the 8 o'clock in the morning feel refreshed to go to work. Genetically, you may have longer cycle type, and you need maybe extra 2 hours to complete 5 cycles of this restorative architecture. So we also, besides that, you have to complete your REM, non-REM sleep cycles. We follow in 24 hours circadian rhythm, and a human and some mammals, we follow, we have to sleep at night, and there is another hormonal burst, and there is neurotransmitters. Everything originated in helping us to go through this 24-hour cycle. For example, during the day, all our brain activity, and there is a metabolite or chemical in the brain called adenosine, and adenosine level raised during the day and kind of affect sleep pressure. What I mean by sleep pressure, that sleep pressure make you to go to sleep. However, there is the chemicals like caffeine, and for some people who fast metabolizers, you can drink coffee in the afternoon and go to sleep. For some people who genetically don't metabolize caffeine, and we have coffee at 4 o'clock, and we inhibit adenosine, we're gonna have a problem to fall asleep. There is another 2 important chemicals, melatonin and cortisol. Melatonin has to accumulate and it secretes at high level at 9 o'clock in the evening and make you to go to sleep. But in order melatonin produce and secrete in the evening, you need in the morning to be in a light, bright light. You'll have to look in the sun and it will stimulate production of melatonin. And again, in the cortisol level will be low during the night, but in the morning, your cortisol level needs to rise to wake you up. So sleep disturbance has a lot of, it's not in new news. There is an old epidemiological study, new epidemiological study with 11,000, this enhanced study shows that complaints of non-restorative sleep as opposed to nocturnal insomnia symptoms were associated with high levels of CRP, which is an acute reactive protein, which is the marker of inflammation in the body. In chronic fatigue syndrome, I work with Dr. Klimas in the immunology department since 2012, so my sleep presentation will touch a lot of immunology. We know that there is many studies. We have pathogenic role, which means this contributes, the sleep abnormality contributes to symptoms in chronic fatigue syndrome. And the complaints we hear every day, it's actually part of the case definition on restorative sleep. The polysomnia, there we study, we know that there is components of the disordered breath, but we also know that there is alterations in the sleep, with non-REM stages. All of this, I'm trying to put that number of immunological and inflammatory parameters which we measure and which document in ME CFS also affected by quality of sleep. And quality of sleep impair T cell production, which is T cells will help us to fight viral infections, natural killer cells, which help us to fight viral and cancers, all the pro-inflammatory cytokines correlated with symptoms of ME/CFS. And we know that immunopathology is very common and very, like it's a present symptom in chronic fatigue syndrome. This is, I will be very shortly explaining paradoxical correlation between immune system and sleep. So when you have your immune system there to help you to fight all foreign substances, microbial, viral challenges. And the immune, when your immune activation present, when you have a flu or you got a little bit sick, your body kind of got a signal and you go to sleep. And sometimes we recommend rest, drink, you have a viral, some flu, you need to go sleep. This is your body protection. But paradoxically, when your host defense with immune inflammatory activities very, very strong, and particularly we are chronic and persistent, we are disturbing your sleep, and it's actually contribute to chronic disease. This is another picture how immune activation, the stress, the environmental stimuli, normal bacteria your microbiome, sometimes it's regular commensal bacteria or potentially pathogenic bacteria and viruses. We stimulate your immune system. Immune system cells of immune system produce chemicals which signal the brain to alterate activity, make you sleepy, make you tired, make you fatigued. Interestingly enough, if you look on this on the right on the schema, there's this green pathogen. It's in not big amount of this pathogen. It's actually increase non-REM sleep. Then it can, with increase in non-REM sleep, your REM sleep coming down, and they're both equally important for you. But when you have chronic persistent immune activation and you're under attack of this stress or immune system activation, and you produce a lot of these pro-inflammatory cytokines, both stages of the sleep, non-REM and REM, were all decreased. And obviously, I'm not going to go through all this schematic, but what I want to say, that is the principle, how immune system communicate with how sleep affects immune system and whole body and hormonal effects in the body. And what I'm trying to, on the left, this is glucocorticoid receptors. It's your growth hormone. This is your hormonal reaction in the body. And on the right, it's a sympathetic nervous system. And sleep influence your sympathetic nervous system, sleep influence your hormonal levels. Two pathways, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, and sympathetic nervous system. And this is the same two systems have a huge effect. They regulate adaptive and immune system. When these two serious pathways, serious system disbalance because of sleep, it's actually will be, your immune system will be disbalanced, and it kind of go back and forth. So this is important point I want to mention in this pandemic situation. There is numerous of really good quality, good evidence studies shown first in animals, like with all study clearing of influenza was slowed in sleep deprived mice as compared to animals that were not sleep deprived. But in a human, following a night of partial sleep loss, immunologic response to an influenza A vaccination was reported to be reduced by over 50% compared to response in those who maintained regular sleep. And another study, we shorter sleep duration, like less than 6 hours per night, confirmed by actinography, was strongly linked to decreased likelihood of protection from hepatitis B vaccination. Sleep deprivation and sleep disturbance impair adaptive immune system. I also want to mention, because I think I'm going to be running out of time and I'm going to speed up my presentation. It's important to follow to identify your sleep type. Some of you have 23andMe study and probably know that there is some genes and genetic mutation which make you long sleeper or short sleep. You need less time to sleep. But what I wanna point that sleep deprivation, increase in sympathetic activations because of not deep sleep, reduce antiviral immune responses. If you go right now for COVID vaccine, you have to be sleeping enough before and after. This is really interesting communication between the sleep and your immune system work. This is on the top. When you sleep and when you have your deep sleep, non-REM sleep, what happened with your memory, it's like on the desktop of your computer. Your short-term memory filed to long-term memory. Practically what you remember moved to another part of the brain. And here you getting information, uptake on information, you transfer your information to long-term store, then you recall and you remember it better when it's saved in a short, long-term departments, let's say. Your immune system follows the same process like your memory. Your cells uptake, your antigen-presenting cell provide lymphocyte with pieces of bacteria or viruses. During the night, during slow wave sleep, this transfer of information turn to T cells, and then next morning and later you have long-term memory and your cells can respond. Besides of this immune part, your liver detoxify and start detoxification process at 3 o'clock in the morning if you sleep. So it's for your memory, this is your detoxification process. For your immune system activation, it's really important that you sleep at night. So some points for clinicians and patients equally. Various medication can disturb sleep. When we prescribe medication, it may be important to evaluate effect on the sleep. Their effect on vaccination is important. You have to have adequate sleep duration and to prevent infections. Chronic sleep deficiency, besides of immune problem, can cause neurodegenerative diseases, autoimmune diseases, metabolic and cardiovascular diseases. Little case study. This is a very fresh, I just called 2 of my patients. And during the visit, when you talk, there is a lot of medication can be used. There is a lot of sleep specialists, neurologists can help you. Integrative medicine has enormous amount recommendation, and integrative practitioner can you actually recommend you little details, which one by one, the temperature in your room, it must be cold. So it's really hard to sleep in a hot room. Right now, we start using a lot of wearable devices. It's a new gadgets, all kinds of different companies do it. And to shorten, I say here, patient A, patient B. I will just tell you a short story. It's patient B just start using device. Patient A went through patient education program, had a lot of interaction with the integrative medicine practitioner, with regular neurologists, with sleep specialists, and all kinds of specialists. It was a process, but you can see right now, patient A wake up in the morning, and even his gadget telling him that his score is 70 and he ready to roll and go with his day, and he feel good, and he can. There is more measurements that this screen shows, but we monitor heart rate variability, which must be high. We monitor resting heart rate. We monitored safe efficiency and duration, and another breath and cardiovascular breathing, another marker. The patient on the B, it's a new B, and by the way, patient A does not take any sleeping aid anymore because some of sleeping medications still contribute to grogginess and fatigue in the morning. It was a long process, but patient A teaching me right now a lot of what he's doing, but he's not taking medication. Patient B using CPAP, taking sleep medication, and he just started using this program, and we in the process, and the machine in the morning recommend him go easy, your score is only 38, and your sleep time was very short, and etc. And this is my presentation. I'm a little bit out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Irina. I really actually enjoyed your takeaway image with memory and the immune system. That's very interesting, actually. Next, we'll be taking a brief break and we'll return back to the webinar at noon. Welcome back. I would like to introduce our next speaker for today, the Institute's exercise physiologist, Jeffry Cournoyer. Jeff works with patients and research participants to help them learn more about the way their body reacts to exercise, activity, and a more sedentary lifestyle. After graduating from the University of Miami and working for two teams in the NFL, Jeff began his career working with patients of all ages in the rehabilitative sphere before moving over to NSU. All the while, Jeff has dedicated his time and energy to learning more about the human body, perfecting an accessible teaching style to patients, participants, and family members, and finding creative uses of technology to create a safe, fun, and effective environment for physiological improvement. Jeff currently resides in Miami with his wife, Sabrina, and their fluffy, and might I add, adorable puppy, Chloe. Over to you, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And yes, I absolutely love that picture. She's, you know, I love my little baby. Anyway, so today, let me just share my screen here. Hang on one sec. You'd think after all this time of using Zoom, we know how to do it better by this point. Okay, so today what I wanted to talk about is I want to talk about the use of exercise and really the redefinition of the word exercise and how we can kind of use the different energy and nervous systems in our body to really help, you know, with you know, at least controlling, if not improving, the symptoms of ME/CFS. We've been doing a lot of research on this in the time that I've worked here at INM, and we've learned quite a bit about, you know, how to help treat individuals with ME/CFS and how to make sure that when they're exercising, they are A, not hurting themselves, because that's obviously the biggest case, and B, not doing anything, or I'm sorry, B, hopefully helping to improve themselves in the long run. So I wanted to divide this talk into two sections. The first section is really to talk about exercise and ME/CFS, and you know, to paraphrase Hamlet down here, it's, you know, to move or not to move. And you know, this has been, you know, kind of a big question that I've been having a lot as I've been speaking with ME/CFS patients, and it won't come as a surprise to very many of you, but the answer is probably a bit more complicated than you know, I think a lot of people make it out to be. So first thing that I wanted to kind of mention is, again, many of our ME/CFS patients understand very well this whole idea of post-exertional malaise. This is the idea that when individuals do any sort of exertion, they have a severe, at times, symptom exacerbations following that sort of exertion. So, you know, the first thing that we need to do is we need to think about, well, what is exertion? You know, because you could think about, yeah, I mean, going and running for a mile, yeah, that's probably not going to be good for someone who might not necessarily have, you know, the activity tolerance to be able to do that. But then there's also the mental and cognitive aspect of it, where if you're sitting and staring at a computer screen for too long, that can end up becoming a large issue for you, or even emotional things. I've been working a lot with the next speaker you'll be hearing, Dr. Bested, and she has mentioned many times that there's a lot of exacerbation that can come from even having arguments with family members and all that kind of stuff. And it's a good to kind of acknowledge that all of these things are exertion, so that we can kind of get a better hold on how we might be able to treat all of these types of exertion, and make sure that your body is able to withstand those without having the post-exertional malaise. So we want to talk about too much exercise that might be too intense, and also we also want to think about the idea that there might be a state where there's not enough physical activity because, for one reason or another, it's been a little bit difficult to be able to do that amount of activity. So the big thing that we really want to do is first, I want to discuss this idea of energy differences in ME/CFS. This is a graph that we've been, that I work with a lot of my patients on. Whenever we do one of those exercise tests, if you've ever done one of them, we have the mask on your face and you're pedaling on the bike for as long as you can. And throughout that entire process, what we're doing is we are getting a grasp of how your body metabolizes certain fuel sources. The two main fuel sources that we look into are the fat metabolism, which would be in this red line right here, and the carbohydrate metabolism. What we're looking at here in this top graph, this is an individual who is considered to be like a healthy control. And you can see that there is a whole lot of space underneath this red curve until they hit this line called the anaerobic threshold, at which point the fat metabolism does and should ride at the bottom. All right. And essentially what this tells us is that this person is able to burn fat, which is a significantly more efficient fuel source when their body is supposed to be burning fat. Now, if we look down here, I wanted to try to get something, so I have these gray lines kind of drawn. So this is an exercise test that is almost the exact same length between a healthy control with this graph on the top and an individual diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome on the bottom. They were able to go for the exact same amount of time, meaning that the bike was at the exact same level of resistance and they did the exact same amount of work or the exact same amount of exercise. But what we can see is that instead of having this really nice large level of fat metabolism, there's really not much of that fat metabolism at all for the chronic fatigue syndrome patient, which means they spend a whole heck of a lot more time burning the other fuel source here, which is the carbohydrates. The carbohydrates really should only be reserved for, like fast, immediate sorts of energy, like if you had to, sprint or if you had to do something like that. So what we're seeing is that ME/CFS patients, while they have the same capacity for exercise, their fat metabolism, their good endurance, their good kind of efficient metabolism just is severely lacking instead. And I wish I could tell you why this happens. This is why the research is ongoing. If I could tell you that, I'd probably be a lot richer of a man than I am right now. But what we do have is we have this knowledge that there is a very large difference in the first half of an exercise test, which is, for the most part, exactly where someone would kind of lie during these things. So with this in mind, our goal, or my goal as an exercise physiologist, is to try to help change this graph from this graph using the appropriate type of activity or exercise. All right. And the reason I say activity and exercise, and I'm trying to differentiate between the two, is the term exercise really does have a bit of a negative connotation in the ME/CFS community, and it's with good reason. Absolutely. You can see all these examples that I kind of took from clippings online, of people saying that more exercise isn't better or exercise is dangerous and everything like that, and that negative connotation and the kind of that misrepresentation comes from a misdefinition of the word exercise. I want people to think about exercise as any sort of movement or any sort of activity in general that would, be beneficial for you to be able to use to kind of move through the move through the process of recovery and trying to get back into something else. And the way that we do that, the way that we try to, I like to try to define or redefine, I should say, this term exercise, is by using that something that we call METs. All right. So we're going to get to that. I forgot about this slide here, but you know, really what we want to say is that we don't necessarily need you. You know, it's a funny Key and Peele skit here, but you know, you see how much he's sweating right there. We don't need you to sweat. We don't need you to breathe heavily. We don't need you to feel as though you're exercising or that you got a good exercise in for that day to get all of the amazing benefits that exercise and movement can confer even on people with ME/CFS. You know, so the big question you want to ask yourself is, well, why are you exercising? Why are you moving in general? Are you trying to get in shape? Usually I have some people tell me that they are out of shape. And that is a term that I absolutely never use with my patients because it's not a scientific term. It doesn't particularly make sense. But it is a really good idea to make sure that our muscles are strong enough to be able to support our body so that when we do have to get up and we do have to move, you know, we can do that. And there are very, 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 very easy ways to be able to move our muscles to make sure that we are able to, you know, kind of gain or at least maintain the strength in them. This is going to help us avoid joint pain. And hopefully, because we are kind of using our muscles in a certain way, we're hopefully going to be able to improve and change some of the symptoms that are evident in ME/CFS to be able to allow that. So like I said, I skipped the slide, but the next slide here is we talk about something called METs. A MET is a way that we can kind of quantify the amount of exercise or the amount of intensity that any activity that you could imagine has. So what we do is we take the baseline of one MET, where, you know, one MET is you laying down, simply being awake and alive and literally doing nothing else. You're not looking at a computer, you're not thinking, you're not talking, you're not doing anything like that. Any activity above one MET should be considered exercise. And then from there, we just try to figure out, well, how intense is that exercise? So for example, going out for a walk, all right, we have the picture of the woman, you know, walking her dog right here. She is working currently at about 3.5 METs or 350% harder than that simple baseline of just being awake and alive. So there's a lot of room between what seems like a very simple exercise and, you know, your baseline metabolic requirements. And we can use that amount of room. We can use that 350% or any space in between to be able to find any sort of activity that is actually beneficial for you without being, without, you know, invoking symptoms of post-exertional malaise or anything like that. Not only can we find an intensity like that, but we also want to take a look at the volume of exercise that you're doing, because as a lot of CFS patients, I'm sure, are very well aware, there is, you know, this idea that, you know, while you might be able to do something for 2 or 3 minutes, you can't do something for 20 or 30 minutes. And that is, you know, even though it's the same activity, that's because there's also a volume of this kind of thing that goes on as well. We use this term called MET minutes to be able to figure that out. So this woman, if she's going on a walk for 10 minutes, you know, at 3.5 METs, she's now done 35 METs, which would be, you know, again, 35 times higher than just kind of sitting there being awake and alive. By using these sorts of quantifying terms, my hope is that we can start to figure out, you know, how we can, you know, prescribe the right level of activity and the right volume of activity so that we can get, again, those great benefits of exercise without, without, you know, causing any sort of post-exertional malaise by making it too much. So that's kind of the thing. I just have this graph. I'm not going to, you know, go through each one of these, but I just kind of want to pull out some examples where, you know, something like, let me see over on this side. So something like playing squash is 12 METs or 1200% higher than, you know, your resting baseline. So that's obviously exceedingly intense, but you can even see something like riding in a car, for example, just being the passenger in a car is, you know, 1.3 METs. That's already 30% harder than just being awake and alive. So that's something that, you know, if you go on a long car trip, it makes sense that there is something that, you know, there's an extra volume there that ends up being a little bit more difficult. So that's something that we really want to try to pay attention to as we're starting to prescribe these sorts of activities. And it's one of the things that when I'm speaking with patients, I really try to, figure out exactly what kind of exercises their body is going to be able to tolerate. And usually what I do is I really underestimate those activities so that we can kind of build up onto those, or into those activities, I should say, and make sure that individuals are kind of working toward feeling better and being more tolerant of exercise and activity. One of the things that we do a lot of times here is just kind of keeping an eye on time here. I'm going to have to kind of move through this. I tend to talk a little bit too much, but one of the things that we do here is we take a look at this scale of rate of perceived exertion. And it's a bit of a strange scale, but usually what I try to do is when people are doing some sort of activity, I ask them to kind of take a look at this scale. 6 is absolutely nothing. We're just sitting here. We're not doing any sort of activity, or even just laying down, doing zero activity whatsoever. 20 is the hardest, I tell someone it's the hardest you've ever worked in your life. So we try to sit here and we try to quantify how hard they feel as though they're working on this scale. And usually what I tell people, and this is a very kind of generalized thing, we do research and we would do an exercise test to try to figure out the exact numbers. But usually at about a 13 or a 14 is when we see that fat metabolism on that graph that I showed you earlier start to ride along the bottom. And that's kind of the point that we'd like to stay below. So if I usually prescribe an exercise for someone that I haven't met in person, I haven't been able to do the exercise test on, I'll usually try to keep them maybe at between a 10 to a 12 or something like that. And that's another nice, very easy and very free way to be able to use that sort of quantification thing to, make us all a little bit more well aware of what's going on. I'm actually, I'm going to briefly go over these slides. I know I only have a couple minutes left, but the reason I pulled up this slide is because one of the biggest things that we can do is, especially for individuals with POTS, or postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, a lot of times moving blood through the body is one of the hardest points of this. And the reason for that is because the heart is really, really good at pumping blood out to the body, or out to the extremities, I should say, but it actually doesn't have a mechanism to be able to bring blood back in. It's not like it can suck the blood back in. It just relaxes and lets blood flow back in. The reason the blood gets back up is because the muscles around our veins in our extremities will actually squeeze, and kind of like squeezing a hose, the water will spurt out the end. We're doing the same thing whenever we squeeze our muscles. So being able to utilize and, contract our muscles in a safe, non-intense way is actually going to help improve our circulation and hopefully help reoxygenate our blood and actually feel an improvement in our symptoms to begin with. And briefly, I just kind of want to move on to the autonomic nervous system just for a minute. And what I want to talk about here in the autonomic nervous system is the fact that there is 2 branches of the autonomic nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for all the symptoms of fight or flight, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for all the symptoms of rest and relax. What we see a lot of times is that, individuals with CFS, for one reason or another, have a lot of activation of their sympathetic nervous system. So one of the other things that I do to work with patients is I try to work on strengthening their parasympathetic nervous system so that we have the ability to, improve symptoms in that way as well. Some of the symptoms, that you can see, increased breathing, just kind of chest and heart palpitations, numbness in your fingers and your toes. Those are signs that you might have higher than normal activation of your sympathetic nervous system, and signs that we might be able to help you out by increasing the strength of your parasympathetic nervous system. And I have a bit of an animation that kind of shows that. So normally we would want someone to kind of be on an autonomic balance. You see, on one end we have the parasympathetic nervous system, and on the other we have the sympathetic nervous system. So if I drop a ball right in the middle, nothing changes. And as long as I am putting stimuli at both ends of this scale, everything's going to stay the same and everything is going to be nice and balanced. Now, CFS, like I said, happens to be a big, a lot of patients tend to have, high levels of activation with the sympathetic nervous system, which completely throws this scale off. And not only does it throw the scale off, but even if we do activities at other ends, now everything is starting to roll down toward this sympathetic nervous system. And it really, it just increases this imbalance over time. So what we want to do is we want to try to find a way to train the parasympathetic nervous system so that we rebalance this scale. And if we rebalance this scale by doing things like this deep, slow breathing, some low intensity interval training, if that's something that we can do, you know, very low intensity kind of pedaling on a gentle pedaling on a bike, meditation, or even just kind of changing your level of activity. Now, when we drop these balls down, once again, that scale is rebalanced. So it's just kind of a brief idea about how we want to try to use the training of the parasympathetic nervous system to rebalance this scale and to make sure that, you know, those symptoms that you might be feeling don't, you know, they don't happen anymore, because now we're trying to re-engage that balance between the two. You know, I only have a few seconds left. So what I can tell you is to help with reinvigorating the parasympathetic nervous system, one of the things that you want to do is you can do diaphragmatic breathing, which, as we can see in this picture, he's trying to breathe, you know, into his belly and not allow his chest to rise. This is going to allow the parasympathetic nervous system to kind of increase in strength as well. And the other thing that we can do is slow breathing, which is breathing around 6 breaths per minute as opposed to the typical 12 breaths per minute. We can see this graph right here, which says that, you know, essentially it says that the parasympathetic nervous system is strongest when we're doing this slower breathing. It's kind of a relaxation technique that I've used with a lot of my patients, and it tends to work very, very well. And I don't have time to go over the slides, but I will just say, you know, I just wanted to say thank you very much for your time. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them during the Q&A session.
Thank you, Jeff. Actually, we have some of those breathing exercises on our YouTube channel if you want to check them out. Next, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Alison Bested. Dr. Bested is a physician at the Institute for Neuro-Immune Medicine and chair of the Department of Integrative Medicine at Nova Southeastern University. She is also associate professor at the Dr. Kiran C. Patel College of Osteopathic Medicine, director of student research development, and diplomat of the Board of Integrative Medicine. For the past 26 years, Dr. Bested has treated patients with complex chronic medical conditions, including ME/CFS, fibromyalgia, Gulf War illness, multiple chemical sensitivity. She is trained as a cognitive behavioral therapist and clinical hypnotherapist, as well as managed support and education groups using telemedicine in Toronto to support her long-distance patients. Dr. Bested has co-authored 2 books, Hope and Help for Chronic Fatigue Syndrome and Fibromyalgia, and the Complete Fibromyalgia Health Diet Guide and Cookbook. Her future goals focus on the continued education to the public about ME/CFS, fibromyalgia, Gulf War illness, and multiple chemical sensitivity, as well as promoting NSU as the #1 treatment and research center in the United States for patients with ME/CFS, fibromyalgia, and Gulf War illness. I will now hand it over to you, Dr. Bested.
It's a pleasure to be here this morning to speak with everybody. Here's my screen. Can you see my screen now? Sarah, can you see my screen now?
Yep, you're good.
Great. All right. So today, my topic is about pacing. If you're some of my former patients listening in, you'll know this is one of my favorite teaching areas, because I find it's the best bang for your buck. And so today we're going to review and learn how to stop crashing and increase your energy in myalgic encephalomyelitis and chronic fatigue syndrome. So today's goals are to improve your current symptoms, your function and quality of life, so that you can actually do more. And the second goal is by doing this, you can help, by learning to pace, you can help to prevent the worsening of your ongoing symptoms and stop crashing, which also causes viral reactivation and makes you feel much worse, and things like preventing osteoporosis and depression. So as you know, ME is a multi-system disease with all these physical problems that are present that you're well aware of. So today we're going to focus on The one at the bottom, the severe fatigue or post-exertional malaise or fatigue, and the abnormal metabolism that comes with it, how to cope with it. So these are the clinical criteria that are often used to diagnose patients with ME, and I put this up if there are any clinicians on board so that you know that there are clinical criteria that can be used, because currently only 10% of patients continue to get diagnosed. So in order to treat patients, we need to look at a holistic treatment. So I put this up, this is the determinants of health, to look at all the different things that impact your health. And today we're going to focus on our personal health practices and coping skills. We're going to look at the adaptation process, which is the same as homeostasis. The body attempts to sustain the balance within. And we're going to help to teach you how to rebalance your body and learn how to pace. So this is a homeostatic balance, and I think it's great. I enjoyed Jeff's talk, and he talked about balance, homeostasis, and this is the same idea. So the body systems are impacted, and we use the concept of the seeds of health, which means in order for you to be healthy, you have to have a support system, you have to have a healthy environment, you ideally need to be exercising at your level of capacity, having a good diet, and sleeping well. So these are the things that keep you in balance and keep you healthy. When you have ME, you're out of balance. Your homeostasis is out of balance. And what happens is that you may have problems if you're deconditioned and you're overdoing it and you're crashing. So today we're going to focus on exercise and pacing. So as Jeff told you, the metabolism of patients with ME is abnormal. We know this, and we can show this when we do a 2-day bicycle ergometry test. So in this slide, the couch potato is represented by the red line, and the ME patient is represented by the blue line. And on the first day, the person is asked to to actually sit on a bicycle and pedal to their utmost capacity. And that would be at the level of 13 and above. And they're told to stop when they basically have reached that capacity. And you can see the couch potato looks identical to the ME person on the first day. However, because the person who has ME pushed themselves and went beyond their threshold, as a result, on the second day, the ME patient crashes. So the couch potato can do the exercise the same way on the bicycle and has the same results. The second day, the ME patient is crashed because they used more energy than they had available to them. And this is what we're trying to avoid by teaching you how to pace. So pacing is a treatment when you have limited energy, and this works not only for ME, but really for any illness where you have limited energy. So you have in ME impaired muscle metabolism. You've already heard that from Jeff with a great explanation. So pacing is the methodology of changing your lifestyle from doing anything you want whenever you want it to listening to your body. So you alternate your activities of daily living with rest periods in between. So you stop pushing and crashing as a result of that. You learn to honor your body's limitations and expand those limitations slowly. And as Jeff mentioned, you keep your heart rate low and you avoid aerobic pushing exercises where you're beginning to sweat. So you keep things at a very low level of activity. So I want to clarify what rest means for you, because rest can mean different things to different people. Rest to normal people might mean sitting down and having a cup of coffee, which is restful if you have normal energy. If you have ME, you do not have normal energy. So rest for this purpose means lying down, shutting your eyes, and either meditating or sleeping. The meditating basically is part of the different modalities you can use to increase your parasympathetic tone in your body. And Jeff spoke about this, and basically this is the relaxation response. So it's increasing your parasympathetic, which is part of your unconscious or your automatic nervous system, and basically it's helping to increase that up, because this is and when you're in the parasympathetic mode, this is the mode where your body heals. This is the rest and digest mode. The sympathetic mode is where it's a fight or flight. If you see a bus coming at you, you literally jump out of the way, and you have tons of energy because you have this immediate release of all kinds of hormones to help you do this. So this is what you don't want to avoid. You want to avoid the adrenal stimulation, the fight or flight response. You want to stop the adrenal addiction, and some of you are adrenaline addicts. So in our society, we are mostly type A personalities. In my practice, I think I only had one type B personality ever. So it means that you need to learn how to stop, and stop repeatedly throughout the day. And when you stop, you need to rest, which is lying down, getting your feet up so that you take the stress off your heart, you get your blood flowing back to your heart, and you basically take the stress off your brain by meditating or doing yoga or sleeping. As Jeff mentioned, you can spend your energy only once, and these are the different ways you can spend it. You spend it by going for a walk, by physically doing things, mentally by being on your computer and answering emails. You say, well, I'm just answering emails. Yes, you are just answering emails, but it's using up physical energy. And the third thing I've mentioned is emotionally. If you have an ongoing stressful situation in your house, if you can't pay your bills, if you're having fights with your kids, this all uses up your energy. And once you use it, you can only use it once. And after that, it's gone. So it takes time for you to replenish your energy. So it's like having a battery and one of the electric cars. Periodically throughout the day, you're on a very short time span. You need to basically recharge your energy, and then you can go again. And on your good days in particular, you need to pay back your energy. So I always say to people, think of your good day as having the opportunity to pay your energy loan back, which is the opportunity for you to heal. And when you do this, you basically are paying your energy forward into healing your body. If you continue to push yourself, you're always in loan or in red to your body, so it never has the opportunity to heal. So how do you find your crashing threshold? And this is all about awareness. You basically, in my experience, I have found that we tend to live in our brains all the time, and we need to shift gears, and we need to learn how to live paying attention to our bodies. And I found the easiest way to do this is to actually write it down. And I'll review this in a minute. You record your energy level and your activity daily without judgment for a week. You find the best time of day for you, and then you listen to your body and you stop before you crash. And this helps you to plan for your health. So the idea is that you do a symbolic shift of the way you think about how you do things. So normal people, if you think of yourself as being the pilot, your brain has ideas, and then your body functions, and that would be your co-pilot. So normally you say, for example, you want to go shopping at the mall, you say, okay, fine, I'll go to the bathroom, grab my wallet, and away I go, not thinking about how long I'll be gone, how much energy I'll spend, can I manage it, because you're normal energy. And this is what normal people do. However, when you have ME, you don't have the normal amount of energy. So what I'm suggesting for you is to change how you think about your body. So I would prefer that you put your body in control. So let your body be the pilot and let your brain be the co-pilot. So for example, the brain still has the idea. It says, let's go shopping at the mall today. And the body says, well, I didn't really get a good night's sleep. And my energy level is down this morning. It's really not a good time. And your brain says, okay, let's plan for this another time. So it's giving your body control over the activities of your daily life. So how do we do this? We're going to take a minute and actually do this in real time. So I'd like you to close your eyes with me and say out loud, body, in this moment, what do I need? And it will be either an activity, I need to go to the bathroom, or you'll say, I need to go to sleep or have a rest. So that's the first thing. And hopefully you've taken a moment and you've asked yourself that question, and your body has let you know what it needs. The thing about your body is it will not tell you unless you ask it. So you really have to give yourself permission to ask your body what it needs. So for example, say my answer is rest. I close my eyes again and I say, body, this moment, how many minutes of rest do I need? And I would scroll through maybe the 10 times table, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And 50 is the number that resonates or feels good to my body. And I would go, okay, I need 50 minutes of rest right now. And then what I would do is I would go lie down flat on a bed or a flat surface, a couch that's very big, that's comfortable. Set your phone as a timer. We all have these things. Set it. And then when it goes off, then you can get up again. And then you would repeat the cycle. And you would say, body, in this moment, what do I need? And at this point, it would probably say an activity. I need to make some lunch. And you would say, how many minutes of preparing for lunch do I have? And again, you close your eyes, 5, 10, 15. So you set your alarm again. And after 15 minutes of lunch preparation, you would lie down again. Or you would ask it, what do I need to do next? Which would probably be a rest. So you have these activities and mini rests throughout the day. This is what pacing is. So I would encourage you to practice pacing on your own today and see how far you get. Because if you continue to push your body, you'll see the crashing pattern on the top here. And over time, you push, you crash, and your energy goes down. If you learn to pace, you still have good days and bad days, which is a squiggly line on top, but overall, you start to have improvement of your energy. So I use the activity log and functional capacity with my patients. It incorporates an energy rating activities, and you can put your symptoms and emotions on the reverse side of the activity log. I have found this has been extremely helpful because you do not remember what you've done from moment to moment, and you need to understand that so you get a better handle on how your body is managing your low energy. So this is a typical activity log or daily diary. And as you can see, it's got the days of the week across the top, and on the left-hand side, it's got the hours of the days. You just write in those boxes what you're doing and what your energy number is. And the energy number you can pick from this functional capacity scale, which was designed for patients with ME by Dr. Lynn Marshall and myself. And basically, you record this every hour that you are active. And it really is helpful. Normal energy is 9 to 10 out of 10. 0 to 7 is basically, and 8 is basically reduced energy. My patients used to come to me with an energy level of 3 to 5 out of 10. So I've seen some, and I have some bedridden patients as well. So I've seen them very severely disabled. And what I found is over time, if you learn to do this, your energy levels improve. So this is a typical patient's diary that I had, and it shows that the energy level across the top is extremely low. 1, 2, 1, 3, 3, 4. So what it shows me is that this person, just by looking at the colors are the rest periods. And this person basically is crashing because he's got huge layers of time that he has to be lying down. So that shows me that they're actually crashing. This is a person that's learned to pace, and the energy levels here are much better, 6, 7, 7, 6, 6. And you can see that the rest periods, there are multiple pink rest periods throughout the day. However, by doing these short little rest periods and the odd nap, this person is able to have a much better quality of life and actually able to walk repeatedly every day, which helps to, again, improve your muscle mass, improve your energy, and have a much better quality of life. So my challenge to you is to take control of your energy, what you have, because if you have an energy that fluctuates between 4 to 6 out of 10 on the functional capacity scale, my question to you is, wouldn't you rather be a 6 all the time? So the answer is yes, of course. And how do you get to be a 6? You take the crashing days out of your life. And how you do that is by paying attention to your body, taking multiple small rest periods throughout the day. When you lie down, you either meditate or sleep if you need a longer time. And sleeping after lunch, I highly recommend for people with lower energy because that's the time that your body does a natural rest after lunch in particular. And then the other thing is that to learn how to do other things that support the parasympathetic system, such as the yoga, such as the meditation, such as the breathing exercises, all these give you the ability to invoke the parasympathetic tone and increase it. So my advice to you is Wouldn't you rather be a 6 out of 10? Of course you would. So take the responsibility for managing your energy better. And yes, we all have things that happen to our lives. I understand that. But take the responsibility most of the time, and you will find that if your energy does fluctuate between 4 to 6 out of 10, and you practice these pacing methods and you write things down, you will see what works for you. And ideally, your energy will come up to a 6 out of 10 consistently. And then ideally, it will start to improve a little bit after that as well. Until hopefully, with the retraining, as Jeff mentioned, about doing the low impact, low heart rate exercises, you'll increase your muscle mass, and then you'll have more energy to continue to grow. So thank you very much for having me today. I wanted to show you this particular lady. This is one of my patients, because I want to encourage you. This was Dorothy on the left at age 55. When I saw her, she was in a horrible state, and the oncologist part of me said, "Where's the cancer?" She was extremely underweight, extremely frail. Her energy level was about a 3 out of 10. We did everything that we could to help her, all the components of the holistic approach, but in particular, including the pacing. And this was Dorothy at age 72 years later, but she was able to go back to work part-time. And as you can see, she gained her weight back, and she was in a much, much better place. So if Dorothy can do it, you can too. These are some patient resources. I'll just flip through for you. This is the INM website, and these are some other online resources. So thank you very much for having me here today, and I'd be happy to answer questions later on. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Bested. We have one more speaker before our next break. I would like to introduce one of the newest providers at the INM clinic, Dr. Annette Fornos. Dr. Fornos has recently joined our clinical team. She is board certified in internal medicine and certified in functional medicine by the Institute for Functional Medicine. Dr. Fornos attended the University of Miami's Miller School of Medicine and went on to complete her residency at Jackson Memorial Hospital. Before joining our group, she was an assistant professor at the University of Miami's Miller School of Medicine. I will now hand it over to you, Dr. Fornos.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to share my screen right now, and please do let me know if you have access to it when you see my slides.
Yes, we see it.
Yes, okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here and allowing me with the opportunity to present on this topic that's so special to me. I'm also a certified Kundalini yoga instructor, for which I find it most appropriate to use my spiritual name, Kirti Amrita Kaur, to present on this topic about applying Kundalini yoga and Yoga Nidra in every CFS. This is a disclaimer for everyone to read on their spare time. And I'd like to begin with a definition of yoga. So according to Yogopedia, yoga is a physical, mental, and spiritual practice. The word yoga means union of body, mind, and spirit. And it's because what we know about yoga is just the physical aspect of it. I was inspired by the word union to create my own and humble definition, which reads, yoga is a science that allows us to connect to our true nature by means of unblocking and opening our energy channels, thus allowing us to experience the all-surrounding universal energy to which we belong. This process results in a deep state of awareness and belonging, and a yearning to become channels of that universal energy and share it with those around us. Through this process, we surrender to that universal energy and discover our infinite capacity to be and co-create. In other words, we understand at our deepest level that we are one. E equals mc squared is the equation for energy by Albert Einstein. If we define energy as inner energy, or the capacity for action or accomplishment, the effort the mind and body are able to exert to move from a current state to a desired state, we define this equation as inner energy equals applying the mind by being consciously conscious. So yoga is the union of the individual's unique consciousness with the infinite consciousness. Your possibilities meet your actualities at the border of awareness. As you think, so you are. The mind guides your actions and emotions. And these are phrases by Yogi Bhajan, master of Kundalini Yoga. A little bit on the history of yoga for the sake of time. I'm just going to cover very briefly. It's over 5,000 years old, and the earlier records that we have are from the 1800 BCs in the Tibetan scrolls. Right now, we're in the Aquarian epoch or Aquarian age, which is an era to be real, to experience who we really are. We come from the Piscean era, which was an era for knowledge. So the Aquarian era is an era to experience, commit, and live our universality. I will briefly go through some research studies, as it is my main objective to do some demonstrations and describe yoga a little bit more into depth. But there has been multiple studies on the benefits of yoga in health, not only physical, but also mental health. This is a short summary of review articles that showed increased flexibility, diminishing anxiety, increasing awareness, strength coordination, improvements in stress, blood pressure, autonomic nervous system, blood glucose control, etc. This is another study. It's a study on diabetic patients in India. And at the end of the study, the arm that practiced yoga was found to have a reduction in their BMI, blood glucose levels, A1C, lipid panels, inflammatory markers, as well as sleep quality. This is another study in a specific type of yoga, Sudarshan Kriya Yoga. It's a breath type of practice that showed that the cellular pH after one repetition of this breath shifted to neutral. The same type of yoga or breath, Sudarshan Kriya Yoga, was studied for patients with generalized anxiety disorder. And it was found to be statistically significant in reducing the degree of anxiety, but it was also followed by a long plateau phase. Another study pertains to the benefits of yoga in cancer-related fatigue in patients undergoing chemotherapy, and it also showed benefit. And this one is about the type of yoga that I practice and I'm certified to teach, Kundalini Yoga. Here, one arm was assigned to the Kundalini Yoga meditation and the other one to another type of response meditation. They found that the Kundalini arm had higher improvements in 5 out of 6 of their secondary measures. This one on Kundalini Yoga as well in mild cognitive impairment. Kundalini Yoga has been studied widely for mild cognitive impairment, and I will go into depth a little bit more later, but it did show improvements in memory, cognitive function, executive cognitive function, as well as mood and resilience. And last but not least, a study on Yoga Nidra, which I will go over next. And Yoga Nidra showed to be very beneficial in reducing ESR, one of the main inflammatory markers. So Yoga Nidra, I will explain on the next slide for the sake of time, but you can see some references at the bottom. And what is Yoga Nidra? Yoga Nidra is the yoga of sleep. I really have practiced this several years ago consistently, and it did very good benefits for myself. I like to, anybody who can lay down on a mat or in bed can practice Yoga Nidra. So I prefer to cover myself with a blanket, cover my eyes, dim the lights. And what you do in the Yoga Nidra is you follow the voice and the instructor who is slowly bringing you down into a calmer levels of consciousness. So you move from the more active beta waves to the less active alpha waves. At this point, we engage our parasympathetic nervous system. We get in touch with our subconscious mind, and we start releasing more serotonin. Deeper into that state, we reach delta waves, which are almost at the stage of deep sleep. It is also said that 1 hour of Yoga Nidra is equivalent to 4 to 6 hours of 4 to 5 hours of deep sleep. And now moving forward to the yoga that I practice and I'm certified to teach, which is called Kundalini Yoga. The definition of Kundalini Yoga has been defined as the yoga of awareness. It's a very fast form of yoga in that the results happen quickly. Awareness is the active interaction of you as a finite individual identity with you as an infinite potential, by Yogi Bhajan. little bit of history. Kundalini yoga is over 5,000 years old, also from India. Back then, there was no difference between yoga and meditation. And for the past 3,000 years, Kundalini yoga was taught in secrecy, from one master to one disciple, reserved for the elite classes, not permitted for women to practice. And that all changed in 1968 when a master of Kundalini yoga named Yogi Bhajan came to America, and he began teaching openly. So Kundalini yoga will use a series of kriyas or exercises, meditation, pranayama or breath frequency, mudra, which refers to hand positions, asanas, and body postures or mantra. It bases its philosophy in the fact that we all have Kundalini energy at the base of our spine, which is available to everyone to rise and through our central channels and just, be applied to the way we live our lives. It's very interesting when I first learned this. So the central channel, which is called the Sushumna channel, by opening our chakras and blocking our body and giving rise to the Kundalini energy, it's also represented in the caduceus. And the caduceus is the symbol for medicine. And I find this really fascinating. This is a book or series of books that I really like by Dr. David Shannonhoff-Kalsa of the University of California, San Diego Institute for Integrative Medicine. And he practices Kundalini yoga techniques for patients with mental health illnesses. And in these books, he gives case studies with specific results. And I encourage everyone who's interested in the topic to just take a look. So inspired on everything that I have seen with the research and applications of yoga, my own experience, I am really interested in studying the potential applications of Kundalini yoga and Yoga Nidra in ME/CFS. For instance, the benefits of fatigue, weakness, autonomic dysfunction, memory, sleep, and well-being in general. This is a typical Kundalini yoga class. I want to point out the picture on the right-hand side, and there's some crutches against the wall. And what I like to emphasize is that this is available to everyone. It's a different type of yoga. You wouldn't have a teacher come and adjust your posture. It is practiced with your eyes closed because we want to go deep within. And the teacher supervises the space and demonstrates. You can choose to just lay down for the whole entire class and still benefit from the energy of the group. And if you're up for it, you can also benefit from a deep gong bath at the end of class. On the left-hand side, you can see a menu of different kriyas or exercises. These are thousands of years old and cannot be altered by the teacher. So I can choose what I like to work on. Let's say I want to work on my lungs or my pituitary gland or my adrenals. So I can pick which kriya to work on, but I cannot alter the actual teaching or the actual sequence. There's hundreds of them to choose from. This is meditation, which is very linked to Kundalini yoga. And typical Kundalini yoga class, there will be chanting, there will be meditation besides exercises. And they're doing one called Ego Eradicator. I know because of the way they're holding up their thumbs. And in Kundalini yoga, each finger has a meaning. So you can choose meditation from a vast menu, such as meditation for strong nerves, meditation to calm the mind, Kirtan Kriya for memory, which I'll go into later, Ramadasa for healing, and there's one sung by children, which is called I Am Happy, and it's very cheerful. Pranayama refers to breath, and again, vast menu to choose from. I really, really like, especially for our patients, alternate nostril breathing or left nostril breathing. If we breathe through our left nostril, we're activating our parasympathetic nervous system. Right nostril, sympathetic or increasing energy. Alternate nostril breathing will help balance the right and left hemispheres. I particularly like breaths of fire to increase lung capacity, purify the blood, activate the parasympathetic nervous system as well. But this one has to be taught because it's a breath that you hyperventilate. It should not be practiced by pregnant women or those women who are in the first heavy part of their cycle. But other than that, it's pretty safe, and it's just bumping your navel, as you can see. Next, I want to show this beautiful meditation, Rama Dasa Sase Sohang. Ra means sun energy, Ma moon energy, Da earth energy, and Sa universal energy. It calls upon the different elements of the universe for healing. Just gonna play briefly for the sake of time. And this again is available on YouTube. If anybody's interested, you just Google want a meditation for healing or a meditation for anything that you like to work on, and you'll be able to find it. So this one is by Ajit Kaur. Next, Kirtan Kriya has been the most widely studied Kundalini yoga meditation for memory, UCLA, UPenn, Harvard. This is a study that was published by the Alzheimer's group.org. Showing blood flow to the brain increase before and after Kirtan Kriya meditation. And this is some of the benefits they listed: upregulating positive genes, protecting telomerase activity, increasing energy, reversing memory loss, etc. These are some of the studies on Kirtan Kriya alone. And this is Kirtan Kriya. I want you to specifically watch the fingers. Like I mentioned, in Kundalini Yoga, each finger has a meaning. So you're coordinating, for instance, the index fingers means Jupiter or knowledge, middle finger, Saturn or patience. The ring finger is sun or energy, and the little finger is communication or Mercury. As you're chanting, whispering, or remaining silent, you're also focusing on the third eye center. And it's not just the coordination, but I also believe the power within the words, the magnetic field of sound that also generates its benefit. This is one of my classes. So you can see it's very, very easy here. I was directing the pituitary gland series, and they were actually pulling towards themselves whatever it is that they yearned for. You can see my daughter and her friends in the background there. This is at the end of class. I chose to wear white to increase my aura by 3 feet and just be more efficient as a teacher, and to cover my hair just to conserve energy. But this is absolutely, on a voluntary basis. Let's hear what Dr. Wayne Dyer had to say about meditation.
And I've learned a lot in meditation. But what I know most about getting quiet and getting peaceful is this: that there's only one power in the universe, and it doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it soul, spirit, consciousness, God. You can call it Louise. You can call it anything that you want. But as Alan Watts said, you can't get wet from the word water. It's not what we call something that gives it its substance.
And just because we cannot get wet from the word water or relax from the word meditation, I'd like to invite...
I've learned a lot.
There we go. I'd like to invite those of you who are interested to follow me in this meditation. It's under 4 minutes, and I will be concluding with this. This is how we end each Kundalini yoga class. I invite you to place your hands in prayer pose. I have an injury, so I can't do that, but if not, you can place your hands at the heart center and close your eyes and just experiment for yourself what you feel.
May the long time sun shine upon you. Oh, love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. Guide your way on.
May the long time sun
May the long time sun
shine upon you.
shine upon you.
All love surround you.
All love surround you,
And and the pure light within you
and the pure light within
guide your way on.
guide your way on. Guide your way on. May the long time sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. Guide your way on. Guide your way on.
Deep inhale, and let's bring peace and healing to ourselves. Sat Nam. Truth is my identity. Deep inhale, and let's bring peace and healing to those who love. Truth is their identity. Deep inhale, peace and healing to the world. Truth is our identity. Keep your eyes closed and bring your palms to your eyes. Take a deep inhale and just imagine any part of you that needs healing completely healed. Keep your hands on your eyes and slowly open your eyes. We are spiritual beings living a human experience. Bring your hands down. And thank you so much for listening. Sat Nam. These are my references. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fornos, for your fantastic presentation. Next, we'll be taking another brief break and we'll return to continue the webinar at 1:10 p.m. Thank you. Welcome back. Next, I would like to introduce another new member to our clinical team, Dr. Jacqueline Junco. Dr. Junco has recently joined our clinical team and will be providing traditional Chinese medicine services to our Kendall and Davie clinics. Dr. Junco is a medically trained doctor who is certified in acupuncture, Chinese herbology, and Oriental medicine from the National Certification Commission for Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine. Her knowledge of Western medicine and natural alternatives creates a powerful combination of modern technology and ancient therapies that are used to treat a vast majority of health conditions. During her extensive 20-plus year career as a healthcare professional, she has acquired training and certifications in integrative nutrition, sound healing, meditation and breathwork, epigenetics, immunology, auricular acupuncture, cosmetic acupuncture, neuroacupuncture, sports acupuncture, acupuncture injection therapy, and addiction medicine. I will now hand it over to you, Dr. Junco.
Thank you so much, Sarah. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you all for being here. And I'm excited to be part of this wonderful team at the Institute of Neuro-Immune Medicine. And my talk is going to be on traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture. I'm also going to touch on some other modalities that I'm going to be incorporating in our clinic. So traditional Chinese medicine is the fastest growing movement in healthcare today. I'm going to go into a little bit of the basics. The human body is an intricate network of energetic pathways which are responsible for unifying the body's organs to work together as a whole. These pathways, known as meridians, work like an electric circuit supplying vital energy or qi to the body's system in order to attain proper functioning. There are over 400 acupuncture points in the meridian system, and there are 20 meridians in total. The picture here is very confusing, but the meridians usually run from the hand. They begin in the hands and the feet, and they end in the head or in the groin. So many people with ME/CFS turn to alternative forms of treatment to either supplement conventional medicines or to receive alternative therapy when dissatisfied with traditional medicine. A little bit of history and acupuncture. It's been found back to the Shang dynasty in the 11th century BCE. These writings described a medicine that focused on the circulation of movement of qi, which is the energy force, and shui, which is the blood. So ill health is understood as stagnation or improper movement of the qi or blood, which results in an imbalance of the yin and yang. Yin and yang. The Chinese philosophy, these are two forces in the universe. Their interaction is thought to maintain the harmony of the universe and influence everything within it. Yin, the feminine, the negative, the dark. Yang is masculine, positive, and bright. I always like this picture, early acupuncture. So a little bit about how it came into the US. In 1971, President Nixon visited China with Henry Kissinger at the time, and he developed appendicitis, had an emergency appendectomy. He got acupuncture while he was there, and he was so impressed by it that he wrote about it when he came back to the States. Okay, so it's one of the best, acupuncture, the Chinese medicine, acupuncture is the one that's best understood, which is the insertion of very fine needles into superficial locations on the surface of the body. In Florida, acupuncture physicians undergo 4 years of training and are considered primary care providers. They place careful attention on the physiological, emotional, and environmental aspects of patients' well-being with a holistic approach focused on the body, mind, and spirit connection. Traditional Chinese medicine has 5 major healing modalities: acupuncture, herbal medicine, nutrition, therapeutic beauty work, meditation, tai chi, and qigong. Acupuncture characterizes a physiological medicine that depends upon maintaining the internal functional balance, which in turn relies on the vascular circulation of blood, vital energies, and vital substances. Acupuncture is a whole body system which can influence patient health by promoting health and well-being, preventing illness, treating various medical conditions. When I see patients and they always say, does it hurt? Well, the needles are very thin, as you see, and I love this picture because it shows in relationship to a matchstick, a sewing needle, and you have the 2 different acupuncture needles below. The facial acupuncture is obviously, it's going to be the thinnest. So it does hurt. It's just like a little prick. Now, how does acupuncture work? There's different theories on how acupuncture works. We're able to see now more things that I will show later on about how, by introducing a needle, different parts of the brain, different parts of the body light up through functional MRIs. But basically, there's been a lot of studies that show through the neurological effects happen because it affects neural pathways, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, it alters the immune system activity, which I'm going to get into detail in a couple more slides, regulates pituitary and pineal gland output, cardiovascular, it releases your own body's endorphins, increases blood flow, reduces inflammation and edema. In the fascia, it helps loosen the fascia, so it's going to soften the body's connective tissue, and it encourages the ionic exchange in the intracellular matrix. It also helps regulate intestinal motility. Immune system. It has been shown to restore the balance between Th1 and Th2 activity, enhancing natural killer cell activity. It also, brain images also show that it also activates the hypothalamus regulating the autonomic system. Now, the World Health Organization in 2003 published a paper with the most diseases and symptoms that could be treated with acupuncture. These are just some that I wanted to put out there, like low back pain, tennis elbow, knee pain, sprains, TMJ headache, induction of labor, morning sickness, nausea and vomiting. It's very good for hypertension. So all these things are, since 2003, have been studied over and over again. This is one of the functional MRIs for a patient with pain, and it shows the different parts of the brain that are activated after the insertion of a needle. And here's another one with knee pain. And here you can see before needle placement, and then how it stabilizes after the needle removal. The red indicates inflammation. Now, is acupuncture safe? It is safe. The only side effects that have been shown, sometimes you could be sore, you could have minor bleeding, you could develop bruises. Lightheaded, very rare. Sleepy, because everybody always feels very tired and relaxed. Like some people don't like to feel that way. Now, one of the modalities that we use on stimulating the acupuncture points through electric stimulation, that's going to stimulate the acupuncture points directly. It's going to help with pain, circulation, paralysis, Bell's palsy, and edema. Auricular acupuncture, the whole ear, the whole body is represented in the ear. So the head would be like an upside down fetus. The head is down here, and then the extremities are up on top. So we treat the whole body just by using the ear. When I was working at the VA, I did a project for PTSD just using the ear, and my results were very, very good. Over 6 months, I had maybe 200 patients. They did extremely well with their levels of anxiety and PTSD. So these are the little needles that go inside the ear. And the theory behind it is that it activates the vagus nerve. So it's going to help with lowering the blood pressure, lowering the heart rate, helps with the heart rate variability. And these 5 points are the most common points that we use. Shen Men is one of the most relaxing points. This is part of the Nidra protocol, which we use for addiction. People who have opioid addictions, alcohol, people who want to lose weight, we do the similar Nidra protocol. Scalp acupuncture. It's based on neuroanatomy, not traditional acupuncture. And this has very good results for stroke patients, patients with head trauma. I've used it on patients with Parkinson's disease. And it's very good also for anxiety, for any type of mental health issues. The scalp is very, very good. You can picture the mechanism is threefold. It wakes up the brain cells that are not dead, but lacking in proper functioning. Third is recruitment of healthy brain cells to perform the lost function and to promote a healthy reintegration of the brain system. Now, people always ask, how many treatments do I need? The treatment is guided on a patient-to-patient basis. Depends how weak the patient is, the levels of anxiety, how lethargic or fatigued they are, how long they've had the condition. And then one of the things that we do in Chinese medicine is we look at your tongue and we take your pulse. And it's a little different than the pulse we use in the Western medicine. We just look at different factors. So by that, we're able to see what pattern we need to work on and then develop a treatment protocol relating to that with using different combination of points. Now, I was reading some studies on chronic fatigue syndrome about, their improvement, and usually the average was 5 sessions. They said, they would feel better. Now, I think that depends on the individual basis, because a weak chronic fatigue is going to have less treatments, like shorter duration, and a strong, somebody who's stronger physically and able to withstand more could have a more powerful treatment, but it doesn't have to have it so necessary. So usually about 5 sessions is what I always recommend, 5 to 6 sessions to see an effect. moxibustion, moxa. Moxa is a Chinese herb, Artemisia vulgaris, which is mugwort. It's concentrated into, they dry it and they concentrate into cigar form like this. And then what we do is we place that over the acupuncture points, and that's going to help warm the needles, warm the areas, warm the channels, and it helps stimulate blood. It's great for all these conditions listed here. I use it a lot in patients for pain. It's used for a lot of dysmenorrhea, menstrual pain. Cupping. Cupping became very well known in the US after Michael Phelps in the Olympics came out with all these wonderful blotches all over him for shoulder pain and shoulder injury that he had. So since then, every athlete wants cupping. So there's two forms of cupping. One is the fire cupping and the other one's by suction. The fire cupping, what it does is using the fire creates a suction. And that's where you see the area there inflamed under the skin. Now it's used to improve circulation, relieve pain, it helps with digestive issues, and opens the chest and lungs. The inflammation is the first line of defense. In healing, when the vacuum occurs, it causes separation of different layers of tissue, which cause a microtrauma and tearing. As a result of this microtrauma, the new blood vessels are being formed, and then blood and nutrients begin to flow to the damaged tissue. The healing chemicals get released into the tissue and promote healing. So these are the different mechanism of action theories that have been postulated for cupping and the effects. Nutrition. Foods intervene internally in the flow of energy within the body. In Chinese medicine, the stomach is the focal point of a person's qi. Thus, a poor lifestyle and unhealthy diet are risk factors for CFS. Overconsumption of sweets, trans fats, alcohol, and processed foods contributes to a lethargic disposition. You are what you eat after all. Let thy food be thy medicine, let thy medicine be thy food. That's been the father of medicine, Hippocrates. So we incorporate TCM, the Chinese-based nutrition, a little bit different than the Western approach to nutrition. Qigong is a wonderful exercise that I recommend for chronic fatigue patients and people who are very sedentary that have, they're not used to exercising. It's an ancient Eastern body, mind, spirit practice, and it improves factors relating to chronic fatigue, sleep, pain, mental attitude, general mobility after 3 and 6 months. The movements involve stretching of the arms and legs, turning of the torso, relaxing, and deep breathing with the objective of fostering harmonious energy flow of qi along the various meridians. Sound vibration. Sound healing synchronizes brain waves to achieve profound states of relaxation, helping to restore the normal vibratory frequencies of the cells in our bodies. Breath work. Breath work is not a new technique. It's been used by healers for centuries, and it's used this day and age a lot in meditation, yoga, and qigong. Engaging the diaphragm, our primary breathing muscle, just breathing consciously into the belly, is a great way to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, promoting our rest, digest, and restorative and repair response. Love itself is the healing power and the remedy for all pain. Here's some references. And thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Junco. Our last scheduled speaker today is the clinic's nurse practitioner, Violetta Renesca. Violetta is a board-certified adult nurse practitioner focusing on functional and integrative approaches to treat patients with complex neuroinflammatory conditions. She recently earned her obtained a doctorate in nursing practice from the University of North Florida. Violetta's focus at the INM includes ME/CFS, Gulf War illness, chronic infections, metabolic syndrome, chronic pain, environmental illness, detoxification, and autoimmune diseases. She works with patients to create personalized treatment plans that addresses root causes of chronic illness. She is also the director of the Veterans Clinic, where she sees patients with Gulf War illness. Additionally, she is a member of the American Association of Nurse Practitioners, as well as the Institute for Functional Medicine. I will now hand it over to you, Violetta.
Hello, everybody. So the topic of my presentation today is the role of nutrition in ME/CFS. So when I started creating this presentation, I found different research articles that talk about the role of nutrition in chronic disease. But then I decided to throw it out and show you the role of nutrition on your own examples. So the cases that you're going to see are example of our real patients and the things that we find doing nutritional assessment. We do nutritional assessment by collecting dietary logs, doing laboratory data, and sometimes patients bring us their genetic data for review. And this is the case of this patient. She's a 74-year-old female. She has a history of ME/CFS, and she has widespread joint pain. She brought her genetic data, and she had a homozygous mutation for the gene HLA-DQ82. This gene increases risk for celiac disease, and patients with celiac, anywhere from 80 to 90% of patients with celiac disease has mutation in that gene. We didn't do the workup for celiac, but the patient decided to try gluten-free diet for 3 weeks. And after 3 weeks, she reported that her average pain dropped from 7 to 4 on the scale from 0 to 10. So she was very happy. The second patient is very similar. He was a 37-year-old male with ME/CFS and fibromyalgia. He also had homozygous mutation of the gene HLA-DQ82. His celiac workup was negative. His pain level was anywhere from 4 to 10. He decided to go on a gluten-free and a vegan diet. And after a few months, he had complete resolution of pain, and he got off all the pain medication. This is a different case. This is most recent, a 42-year-old female with ME/CFS. She started complaining about sore throat, inflamed tongues, and mouth ulcers, and she was thinking she had the yeast infection. But when we did the nutritional evaluation, her B2 level, the riboflavin level were very low. After replacing it with supplements, her symptoms resolved. This case is interesting. This is a 71-year-old female with complaints of muscle wasting. So she noticed that her muscles are getting smaller, and she also reported poor appetite. She reported that she often skipped meals. So this is only part of her evaluation, but on the amino acid, on protein analysis, she was found to be deficient in many proteins. Proteins are funny. Your body stores energy in the form of glucose in the liver as a glycogen, and also as a fat. And we all know where our fat is, right? But body doesn't really store proteins as a source of energy. However, in the critical situation, when the body is under the stress, let's see, your blood sugar drops down and there's not enough glycogen in the liver. Then the body will sacrifice the skeletal muscle and will break them down to create energy, especially energy for the brain, because glucose is preferred form of energy for the brain. So poor dietary intake of this patient may contribute to atrophy of this patient muscles. The following cases, this is a patient with severe deficiency in all the B vitamins and borderline need for antioxidants. This patient is a young gentleman with very low CoQ10 level and glutathione. And I show you later, those two nutrients are very important in the energy production. And the last case I want to show is a patient with the low omega-3 intake, which causes him to have low omega-3 index, which increases his cardiovascular risk. So where all these nutritional deficiencies come from? There are different sources. it could be from the diet, that the patient just eats low nutritional density diet. So they eat food that are not very nutritious. Many of you have food sensitivities, so you avoid lots of food, you don't eat groups of food that also can contribute to nutritional deficiencies. Also the drugs that we take, high blood pressure drugs, blood glucose control drugs, anti-acid, proton pump inhibitors, they all can cause drug-induced nutritional deficiency because they interrupt with absorption of minerals and vitamins. The second source could be environmental toxicity from heavy metals, also from mold and mycotoxin exposure from the food. And the last source could be just internal one, bacterial imbalance in our gut, intestinal permeability issue, malabsorption. Lots of you suffer with IBS and diarrhea. That means you have fast transit time. So the body doesn't have enough time to absorb nutrients, even if you eat the best diet. And then low-grade endotoxemia. Endotoxemia is your own bacteria in the gut releases toxic byproduct. So the diet and nutrition is definitely not going to cure your ME/CFS. However, by addressing the nutritional deficiencies, can be a safe approach to control many of the symptoms. When we eat food, we get macronutrients, which is carbs, protein, and fats. Through the digestion, body changes carbohydrates to glucose, and as I said, it stores it in the liver as a glycogen for the immediate quick energy. Protein are broken down to amino acid, and fats are stored as a fatty acid. From the diet, we also get micronutrients, which is all the vitamins and minerals. How the body uses the calories of the food that we take. About 70% of everything that we eat is used for maintaining vital function in the body, something called basic metabolic rate. Just to live and for body to function, that's how energy we use. Anywhere from 10 to 20% of the energy is used for physical activity, and 10% is used for other factors as digestion, thermoregulation, etc. Different organs in the body has different energy demands, which impacts how they function. So this slide shows you broken down. You can see muscles, brain, and liver are high energy demanded organs. They use up 65% of the energy the body produces for a whole day. Then it comes heart and the kidney, and the last 20% is used by everything else. So where we produce the energy? So we produce this energy in every cell in the body, in their little organelle called mitochondria. And this is the example of the mitochondria. So a mitochondria produces the ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy currency in the body. ATP provides energy to drive many processes in the living cell. Mitochondria produces energy in this Krebs cycle, and I don't want you to get hung up on all the details. I just want to point two things on this schematics. On the top, you can see that we take the protein, carbs, and fatty fats to produce the energy and move them along this whole process. But where the arrows are, right here, you can see that there are cofactors like magnesium, different B vitamins, iron, glutathione, CoQ10. So deficiency in any of those micronutrients or micronutrients, all those big items, can cause that this process is not working properly. Where the mitochondria, and when this process is working perfectly, for 1 unit of glucose, you produce 36 units of ATP. However, to give you an example, 1 heartbeat requires 300 units of the ATP. So what should we do, since we know that many patients with chronic fatigue syndrome has this deficiency? Should we just supplement everybody with the supplements? So the point is, nutrients delivered from the food are different than the one delivered from the supplementation. Supplements has usually one concentrated nutrients. When you eat food, you get different variety of nutrients, but you also get chemicals, phytochemicals that affect how your body works. Most dietary supplements include additional ingredients that allow for quality and dose, and nearly all supplements require some compromise, and they are not purely natural. The other issue is nutrition, diet, food, nutrients dense versus calorie dense. 1 pound of ice cream is not the same as eating 1 pint of broccoli. Even the same food, the way we prepare can give you different nutritional values. And potato is a great example for it, because if you eat 4 ounces of baked potato, like you can see on the left, you can get 128 calories. You can get about 30 grams of carbohydrates, no fats, and 4 grams of protein. However, when you take this 4 ounces of potato and make them into French fries, your calorie amount quadruples. You get 20 grams of fat, and the protein and carbohydrate stays about the same. So there is no one diet that fits everybody. I'm going to review 3 most common diets that are recommended for patients with chronic fatigue. The first one is the anti-inflammatory diet. The anti-inflammatory diet counteracts the chronic inflammation that is the source of many serious disease, not only ME/CFS. The most common and the most researched diet, anti-inflammatory type of diet, is the Mediterranean diet. So in general, in the anti-inflammatory diet, you want to increase fruits and vegetables, eat omega-3 rich foods, monosaturated fat, you want to increase fiber, protein, herbs, and spices. And you want to decrease or avoid trans fats, refined oils, sugars, and simple carbs, processed meats, and saturated fats. The other type of diet is the alkaline diet. So this is interesting diet. It's based on the theory that some foods can cause your body to be more acidic, which is more disease prone and more harmful. By eating certain foods and drinking certain beverages, we can affect the body acidity levels or pH levels. The pH level measures how something is acidic or basic on a scale from 0 to 14. Anything 7 is about neutral, anything 7 and above is on the alkaline side. So the alkaline diet reinforces good old-fashioned healthy eating that cuts back on sugar, alcohol, meat, and processed foods. So when we eat the alkaline way, we eat a wide variety, fresh, high-quality whole foods, mostly organics. For maintaining health, we want to eat about 60% of the foods that are alkaline. And to recover from the illness, we want to increase the amount of those alkaline foods to about 80%. We're going to eat immune system friendly foods. So what does it mean? That means that if you had food sensitivities or food reactivities, you want to avoid those foods. You want to eat about 60 to 70% plant-based diet, mostly from complex carbohydrates, 15 to 20% protein, and 15 to 20% of healthy fats. You want to eat probiotics and fermented foods. You want to drink plenty of water and eat fiber. And this is the chart for the alkaline diet. And if you can see, anything on the left is more acidic and the foods on the right are more alkalines. As a note, antibiotic, psychotropic drugs, and antihistamine, so they are on the acidic side. So the last diet I want to quickly review are different type of autoimmune diet. And the diet that I like is Dr. Walsh diet. Dr. Terry Walsh suffered from autoimmune disease herself. She suffered from MS. And through this dietary approach and the functional medicine approach, she's able to control her MS symptoms. So her diet recommends eating 9 portions of vegetables per day, 3 portions of greens, 3 portions of colorful vegetables, and 3 portions of sulfur vegetables. Sulfur vegetables are onion, garlic, brassica sprouts. She eliminates gluten, dairy, sugar, processed food, and eggs. She limits grains and eat organ meat and fermented foods. There are different types of diets: keto diets, anti-candida diets, FODMAP diets, vegan, vegetarian diets. There's no, as I said before, there's no one diet that is perfect for everyone. So if you're interested in any of the diets or dietary approach, you need to speak to your healthcare provider, nutritionist, which diet would be best for you. Also, once you're on certain diet or nutritional lifestyle changes, it doesn't mean that you stay with it for life, because if your health changes, you may also change your diet. So that's something that is fluid and changes with your health. So in a summary, in the ideal world, we would get all the necessary nutrients from our diets. However, we don't live in the ideal world. Our bodies are designed to absorb and store some nutrients for weeks or even months to ensure our survival. No food contains everything that we need. No supplement is perfectly suited for everybody in every situation. What we have to do, we have to eat the best, the healthiest diet we can, and then supplement if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Violetta. And I want to thank our speakers again for taking time out of their day to present. We heard some amazing topics, from pacing and nutrition to sleep and exercise, along with acupuncture and yoga and meditation. We will now be transitioning to the Q&A portion. I will ask our speakers to please turn on your webcams and unmute yourselves. I'm going to stop sharing so we can see your smiling faces. And as a reminder to our attendees, you can use the Q&A box in your webinar control panel to submit your questions. Irina will start it off with a couple questions that have come in.
Good afternoon, everyone. We have some, all our speakers were working very hard during the presentation and try to answer. We answer a lot of questions, but we have some questions before. And one question, okay, Dr. Klimas is back. So we're gonna start, we have pre-webinar questions, we collect them. The patient asks, the patient has a ME/CFS and inquiring about how individuals can go about becoming research participants in Dr. Klimas' phase 1 trials.
So in the question and answers, we posted an email. You can email just to let us know you're interested. We're not allowed to post our studies on our webpage until they're IRB approved and ready to go. So that's why I'm referring to a couple that are just about to start. You don't see them there yet. They'll be there very shortly as soon as the IRB approval comes through in the next week, we hope. 2 weeks at the outside. So, and then there'll be more specific. But in the meanwhile, whenever you have questions about research, you can just go to our general research question email, and then we keep lists of patients that are interested. We have to come back to you and ask you eligibility questions. And phase 1 studies are very small. They tend to be about 20 patients in a group. So that, for instance, that reboot study I was talking about, our moonshot study, 20 men and 20 postmenopausal women. We sadly did not get funded when we submitted yet again our clinical trial for this. This is all funded by private donation, and we're grateful to all of you that have been donating to help us be able to do this kind of work. We just submitted again the last round, and we got turned down. So that premenopausal woman, we're going to just keep on pushing to get some federal funding or find enough money to do that study as well as on donations.
Well, thank you, Dr. Klimas. There is two questions, and I want to follow on them. One of our functional medicine trained practitioners, how functional medicine can help treating ME/CFS? What's different?
Can you hear me? So I can jump into that a little bit, but Irina and Violetta, please feel to join because they're all certified in functional medicine. So functional medicine looks at the root causes of disease and conditions, right? So as we believe if we don't look and address those root causes, we are not going to be able to go deep into what's causing and heal from the inside out. And so we use it as part of our approach in our treatment, but we are more integrative in that we also use traditional medicine approach and nutrition and all the modalities that were described here in this conference. Anybody else would like to add something?
Yeah, so that's right. So in functional medicine, we really don't worry about diagnosis. We're trying to go up the stream and possibly prevent the illness. That's our ultimate goal. But if you have the illness, so we want to see what causes it. And like patients with ME/CFS, that ME/CFS was caused by, let's see, environmental exposure are a good example because they develop ME/CFS as a effect, maybe mold exposure. So we're just not treating the symptoms. I'm like, we do treat the symptoms to make you feel better, but our ultimate goal is to detoxify you. So hopefully by the end, all your symptoms are improved and you can return to your healthy state.
I also want to answer one question. We have anonymous attendee, and I think I thank you for this question, and it's really important to address. The question sounds, in the opinion of there is my opinion that it will be more useful for ME/CFS patients for your institute to focus on evidence-based science and research. Suggesting that not evidence-based treatment can treat serious disease undermines the seriousness of this disease and can unhelpful raise patient expectations. And I think that I really well trained to answer this question. I had my second master degree in integrative medicine from very old Western North American medical school, from George Washington University Medical School, which all our we treating myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue syndrome, the same way like Western medicine right now treat any chronic complex condition, including diabetes, atherosclerosis, all cardiovascular, even cancer. There is huge, enormous amount evidence-based research that complementary medicine, and I'm stressed, we're not practicing alternative medicine. I personally, Dr. Klimas, we all testing patient on multiple modalities. We're doing metabolomics, proteomics, genetics. We're doing all kind of really dense testing before we prescribe. We prescribe a lot of biochemicals. We practice in regular Western medicine. However, there is well-researched modalities, including acupuncture, nutrition, sleep medicine, yoga. There is a whole list. There is NIH Institute of Complementary Medicine. We implement what we know that proved in research to help. We're not saying to the patients, or we're not promising that one of these modalities will work. However, we have a great experience, and we have, like you saw probably from our presentation, when we collect all these modalities together and make it very, very personal, I can say personalized medicine, and we treat in whole body. It's called whole body medicine. And it actually take a lot of time to know the patient, and it's better to know the patient and know the patient disease. It's not my statement, it's an old statement, but I think you all on the screen agree with me. The moment when we know our patient and patient hear what we're trying to do with the patient, usually we have great success. Anybody wanna say so, Dr. Bested?
Sorry, my phone's went off at the same time, sorry. No, I agree. I think the approach that we take here is looking for areas that respond to treatment. So if sleep is your issue, we would start with that. If your gut is your issue, we would start with that. So because it's such a complex disease process, you can't do everything at once. So you start off with the worst difficulty and you work your way through in order to help the balance we're talking about, to restore health. And I think that the functional medicine is really taking our ability to do the diagnostic testing down to the highest level that we have available in medicine at this time. So I think it really gives us good information that substantiates our clinical diagnosis. So I think we're basically using a holistic approach and getting right down to as deep a layer of diagnosis in terms of functionality at the biochemical and genetic level. And that really helps the patient, I think, in the long run. Yeah.
I move on to next question for Violetta. Do fermented foods aggravate mast cell activation?
Yes, so fermented food can aggravate your mast cells because the fermented food are higher in histamine. The same is also with leftovers. However, there are two issues with mast cells and histamine, because you have enzymes that break histamine in your body, and some people have deficiency in that enzyme, or that enzyme is not producing very well, not working very well. So you might be more prone to mast cell activation syndrome. The other issue, your body is able to handle certain level of histamine. However, if you eat food that are higher in histamine, it can overwhelm the body ability to break down the histamine, and that's why the food that are higher in histamine can trigger your mast cells. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bested, for your previous answer. And one more question for you. What are some ways to handle pacing when I still have to work?
Yes, that's a good question. So working is quite a wide definition. So you can work from home, you can work at a location, and it depends on how extensive your work is required. So it's a combination of trying to match your energy level availability with your working requirements. And sometimes you have more energy and you can manage that. Other times your energy is too low. So you may have to adapt or decrease your working time or change your working environment from at work to at home. Or sometimes if your energy level is very low, like the people who had energy levels of 6 or below, often you have to stop working for a time until you basically have enough energy that's sustainable that you can actually work either full-time or part-time. And then the other option is to possibly work part-time. So the answer is quite variable depending on your available energy, your working requirements, and what your working environment allows you to do. Some bosses are very helpful and they allow you to work from home. Others want you there, your butt in the seat every single day. So it's a very varied answer. I hope that helps.
One more question, Dr. Bested, I'm sorry. Where patient can download your activity log and other forms?
Yeah, I was just looking. It should be on the INM website. I just double checked it and it's not there. So I put in a request for submission. So because one of the links is missing. So
no, there is. If you look on our past videos, when the Dr. Bested presented her pacing video, it's on October, I think 2018. Yes, next to her pacing video, there is a link to her activity logs and the functional capacity scale.
it's true. There is a link, but the functional capacity scale is there, but the link to the activity log is missing. So I just put in a request to
it was working before, so unless maybe something recent.
So it's just gone off. So I requested it. So if you look under past events, exactly on the pacing, and there's pacing video there, so you get a much more robust idea about pacing. So I think I would encourage you to watch that. Plus you get the chance to hear me sing at the end.
We need a tools section. We need a patient tools tag in our webpage. We can get all this in one spot.
That'd be great.
Definitely, we'll have that up very soon in the coming week as well, along with the video to the record, link to the recording.
Oh, questions are coming up. Jeff, question for you. Is there a limit of meds per day to eliminate crashes?
So that's going to be different for everybody. You know, and one of the things that I do, one of the other things that, you know, if we're having Sarah post video, post documents and links and everything like that, I'm going to send her one myself. There is a document that Stanford University published called the Compendium of Physical Activities. It's one of the slides that I had a couple of screenshots of it. The best thing for you to do when you're looking into your METs is just kind of, you know, understand like the activities that you can do currently, again, from anything from laying down, reading a book, all the way to if you can go for a walk or walking around, grocery shopping, whatever the case is. Understand, you know, what those MET levels are. And that's going to be the best way to kind of define that, you know, so you can look through those activities and say, oh, you know, walking for exercise at 4 miles an hour, that's going to be way too much for me. So you look at the associated MET value and say, okay, so anything over that MET value, it's going to be too intense for me. And anything below a value that you can handle, those will be fine. So it's different for everybody. But, you know, go through that. We'll make sure that that's posted up too, and you can go through that and see a whole bunch of different activities and find the ones that that, you know, you can do the best. Look at those MET levels. I'd say that's the best way to start off.
And it's also cluing into your body, knowing how your body is affected by that particular activity. For example, you mentioned grocery shopping. Grocery shopping is just not one thing. It's making up the list. It's driving to the grocery store. It's wandering down the aisles. It's loading your cart. It's unloading your cart, basically after you've driven home. So it's really 6 activities. So if you can break down individual activities into parts. So for example, you might be able to go grocery shopping, but you might have to rest after you've had the groceries put in your car before you drive home. So it's breaking them down and putting little rests into each part of that total activity.
Okay, there is a question, Jeff, maybe you can, is there any benefits from TENS machine for reducing the condition?
Yeah, I'm on the camera and I'm talking, so.
Yeah, I did see that question. And to be honest with you, especially the TENS units, honestly, no, there's not much of a benefit for those ones. You know, there's a similar kind of technology that is not usually available like that to buy on Amazon called neuromuscular re-education. And there's some research that says that that might help with keeping your muscles stronger. But for the most part, no, TENS units are kind of meant to put electrical systems through your muscles to distract them so you don't feel pain. It's not going to do very much to help keep your muscles stronger. For your muscles to be stronger, there is exercises just like simple muscle.
Oh, I think Jeff froze.
Energy, those are going to be the way that are going to help you out much more than a TENS unit would be able to.
This question anybody can take. What supplements can we take to help with the fatigue? Anybody want to take?
Well, I'm just gonna punch in a little bit. So it depends, right? It depends of who you are and what you have. And so it's not possible to answer that question for you personally without more information. However, I think it was well covered in some of our presentations when we look at root causes and we do all the investigations, nutrition, deficiencies, mitochondrial function, much more than that, GI health, whatever it is that you need to, that is not working optimal, then we tailor your treatment for you specifically towards that. So it's not a possible, one answer fit all. However, supplements make sure that you have energy production optimized and detoxification optimized will be where we will concentrate on, in addition to obviously symptom reduction by using our degrees in our training in all of our different fields. And I'm sorry if that didn't answer the question.
I want to add to this question. It's kind of support personalized medicine. We have the statement more is best is not applicable to nutrition. We have on many occasions catching up very high level of vitamin B6. And vitamin B6 hypervitaminosis causes neuropathy, peripheral neuropathic pain. So sometimes taking supplements with no reason and without prior detailed evaluation, laboratory evaluation, can be actually dangerous. And the symptoms, when it's low, when it's high, it's almost the same. So some medication, we have to review medication during the visits when we see patients, because some medication will flush out very important minerals and very important vitamins. And it's not because you have a problem, you're taking medication which helping you to lose this. And we sometimes put in patients on these additional supplements to support biochemistry, individualized biochemistry. We have really individualized biochemistry in each body. I have to answer some question about sleep. And I just lost it, just a second. Let me give somebody, Dr. Klimas, one question for you. What is a probiotic product available in Europe but not in the US?
I just looked it up. I don't remember the name of it because it's in Spanish. So I have to see if Kanika, the home company, has brought it into the United States yet. I'll look it up and put it in the questions while we're talking. Irina, back at you. They're asking about, there's a really good question about SIBO, S-I-B-O, and how to restore gut function. I was going to throw that one at you about mucosal integrity and all of that.
Yeah, in this, but I don't want to go into details of the patient case. There is like some details there about
in general.
So we can in general answer, because yes, the patient asked because the patient lost a natural border that divides small intestine and the large intestine, what usually prevents translocation of bacteria from the large intestine to small intestine, right? So my best advice to this patient would be find GI doctor that knows functional medicine, because he can do additional testing and he can guide you how to improve and how to prevent this translocation of this bacteria to the small intestines. But in general, healthy GI tract, make sure that you have enough digestive enzyme, that you have enough stomach acid production, because that's what usually keep the bacteria in the small intestine in the lower number.
I have a question. I will try to answer. Does sleep schedule matter much when living with ME? Yes, sleep schedule matter with ME, with any another illness, and with a healthy state. It's not easy to change. If you late owl, you're not gonna start change it, and adjustment needs to be done according to your sleep study and your evaluation, and adjustment might be done very slow. You may move your sleep, beginning of sleep 5 minutes earlier and slowly add. The whole point, you wanna add so that you have 7 hours of sleep a day, but there is like U-shape reality. When you sleep less than 7 hours, you can have symptoms, but sleeping more than 9 hours in evidence-based literature reported as adverse, there is some adverse events and symptoms. So sleeping too much is not good. There is a sleep depth. If you don't sleep, the body will take over. Even in a healthy person, after you're not sleeping for 24 hours, if you for a long time you're not sleeping, your body will fall in asleep like without your knowledge about. This is how the drivers got they falling asleep for a really short period of 30 seconds. And it's not under control of the brain. It's automatically because your body cannot work for prolonged time without sleep. There is too many mechanisms to touch right now. So the sleep schedule, and you have to work not by yourself, with a specialist to adjust the temperature in the room, what you eat, when you eat, what do you drink. Alcohol has detrimental effects on sleep. Even sedative medication, alcohol is actually, it's kind of sedating and patients fall asleep easier, but there is a lot of effects which will not let you go to deep sleep. So it's very complex, but yes, it must be scheduled. It's not easy to reschedule if you're already sleeping 14 hours a day, it's not easy to stop doing it, and it must be slowly addressed, preferably with a specialist.
And if I could add, Irina, because the pacing as well ties in with the sleep. So if you're pacing in the daytime, you should be going to bed with a little bit of energy. The people who sleep the worst are the people who go to bed and they get this second wind at 11 and they stay up from 11 till 1. And then they try to go to sleep and they're tired and wired, which means they're in an adrenaline rush. So that's the habit of staying up and waiting for that adrenaline rush that people really need to break. And when you break that, basically it allows you to go into a deeper sleep more naturally. But the only thing that people can do that are in that adrenaline rush and they're tired and they're wired, one of the things they can do to help themselves is to go and do some meditation while they're lying in bed. Because when you do meditate, it does help the body to go into that deeper wave of thinking, the delta. And by doing that, you get the next best thing to sleeping if you cannot get through the night any other way. But the sleeping tablets, as you mentioned, don't help because you don't get that deep sleep with the sleeping tablets, which is what your body needs in order to heal. Because when you get that deep sleep is when your body detoxifies. So you really need to aim for that sleep hygiene. It's so important. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Menopause is known to favor a pro-inflammatory state. Do you have any data on this in your randomized control trials?
Oops, say that again.
Menopause is known to favor pro-inflammatory state. Do you have any data on this in your RCTs?
Absolutely. That's why, in fact, when we do our modeling work, we had to create a different model for postmenopausal women and perimenopausal women from premenopausal women. And no big surprise to premenopausal women and those of us that are beyond that, that the different stages of your phase, one is more inflammatory than the other. You can feel that. Everyone's always talking about how they're relapsing right before their period, right? So we actually have models for all these different time points by having put people on that bike and doing the 9 blood draws and measuring everything from hanging on to figure out what's going on. So yeah, definitely the postmenopausal women are more inflammatory and the perimenopausal women are more inflammatory. And that's why the clinical trial that we've designed has a very powerful anti-inflammatory as the first step of that multi-step study. We're using the drug Enbrel or Intercept for several months before we do the second step of that study that does the reboot to quiet everything down.
I think this is really, it's a big question. I'm gonna read it, but I think it's really important in today's environment. I'm reading what patients say. I was on various antibiotics for 8 months for healthcare acquired UTI during exam for uterine cancer and hysterectomy. Still, unfortunately, have UTI. I'm gonna miss some details. have multiple chemical sensitivity, ME/CFS, fibromyalgia for many decades, for several decades, 70 years old, BMI 23, safe to take vaccine for COVID. I always react badly to medication and drugs. Sorry for such complex question, need advice.
It's a really big one. You know, it's kind of hard to be allowed to give that advice. I don't even know if you're one of our patients. To do it on screen is kind of hard. But
you need to see previous really communication with your closest physician who you trust to evaluate all pluses and minuses and risk and benefits.
yeah, we have a thing posted on our webpage, and I answered a little bit in the chat on ways to make it safer to take the vaccine under pre-medications you can take that won't blunt your immune response enough to what people are always worried about taking medicines around the vaccine because they've been told on TV not to take NSAIDs and not to take Tylenol or anything around the vaccine because you might blunt the immune response. We have measured a lot of post-vaccine responses. Now, we've only had one that didn't mount an adequate immune response, and she was on high dose, very high dose IV gamma globulin. So the good news is it's kind of hard to blunt your immune response to this vaccine. So that's good. We've even pre-medicated patients with steroids in high-risk situations, and they've gotten good responses. So I'm not supposed to do that, but you know, sometimes you have to do that to make it safe. So, but the easiest way is to take powerful antioxidants to quiet the oxidative stress, which will happen post-vaccine and might bump your ME up a notch. To quiet your mast cells, that's the most important step because they are what makes the big inflammatory reaction after a vaccine. So drugs like quercetin, there's a number of different herbal products that are mast cell stabilizers, and many of our patients are on pharmacologics that are mast cell stabilizers as well. But that's very helpful. And then the day of the vaccine to take an antihistamine and continue to take it for at least 2 or 3 days afterwards. And that sort of smooths the experience of the vaccine out. So you're less likely to have a post-vaccine relapse.
Have you done any studies on the effectiveness of vagus nerve stimulators, devices to balance the autonomic nervous system and resolve the flight and fight symptoms?
Yeah, there's a lot of people doing that kind of work and not just us. And Ben Nadelson in New York City has got a study underway with a vagal nerve stimulator. But there's vagal nerve stimulators and vagal nerve stimulators. The idea here is that you're balancing the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic. Like my arm goes away. I like that. Cool beans. So when your sympathetic system is flying, then you're pushing down the vagal nerve, the parasympathetic. So the stimulators try to equalize that and put things back into a balance. They're all research studies. We've had patients that have had remarkable experiences with vagal nerve stimulators, and there's at least one really nice posting on Health Rising, Court Johnson's blog site that is just extraordinary, that describes a vagal nerve stimulator and then a healthy discussion among the patients on how you go about getting one of these things. The bottom line is that there are only a couple that are approved in this country. They're approved for migraines. They're not approved for this. And they've been, of course, priced pretty up there. In Europe, there's a lot of these devices, a lot more of these devices that are approved. So that is a whole nother discussion.
One short question. Why do people have a post-vaccine relapse? Short question.
Anybody grab that one? That's an easy one. I mean, your immune system activates. You're already overactivated, right? So you've got ME/CFS. My immune system, if I'm healthy, that's a big assumption, is 30% activated. Yours is 60, 70, 80% activated before you even get the vaccine. You're already cruising. You throw an a vaccine on that and you just crank it up another notch. Make a lot of inflammatory noise. So the idea there is to quiet the immune system, keep it kind of stable during the vaccine, and make the experience less risky for you. But I am a believer. This is my opinion, and I had practically a shouting match with a different doctor on the phone just last night about this. that it's worth the risk, because COVID is killing people left, right, and center. And I know we're all breathing a sigh of relief, but I'm sorry, we had as many people die last week as died last June, the same week. You know, I mean, we're at where we were this time last year, and that's better because we went higher. But we're not done with this baby yet, and we have to take all kinds of reasonable precautions to say that, to get us through this thing. I mean, it's great that we're, quote, masked down, but I'm like, wow, I'm not so sure, masked down. We're not there yet. So
I want to share a comment from another patient. So we have variety, and they have comment. Thank you for including many of the modalities I tried over the years. Since my environment improved, I can now add them back into my lifestyle. So we have a variety of comments and questions about what we practicing. Maybe functional medicine clinicians, is it true that taking a sleeping pill for a long time, 10 plus years, can develop dementia?
well, that's a good question. You know, there's some research that these are the kind of studies they do with massive data sets, you know, 100 million people in a healthcare system. And then they look at the people who develop dementia and then go back 10 or 15 years and see, was there anything they were doing that was different than the other people? And so they might say that they're taking sleeping medicines. Well, you could also say that having really poor sleep, it causes dementia. And these people were medicated with sleeping pills. You don't know when you do those studies if it was the sleeping pills that increased their risk or if it was the underlying condition for which they were taking the medication. And it would make plenty of good sense, at least in that instance, that poor sleep is not good for your brain, you know. So as Irina very elegantly discussed, all that immune stuff going up there is not good for you. So we don't know. I think the bottom line is you should take what you need to take and take as little as you need to take. In general, the medications, you know, are, you know, I always see my patients with 18 things on board and go, well, here comes a chemistry set walking through the door, because you start taking meds to counteract other meds and so on. And before you know it, it's a little complicated in your body there. So that's why we try to do as much functional or integrative approach as we can. And we obviously use medications. I mean, you have to, and they help you, and there's evidence for them. But sometimes you're just trying to make the body a healthier place. And then you can have a better success in manipulating, you know, the different mediators that are actually causing your illness.
I think we may be out of time. Or one last question. Me seems to be an onion. Are we any closer to determine what is the core of this?
Who went?
I keep it for last one.
I think it's that one for me. Well, obviously we are. I mean, we've done 30 long years of research, and what we understand now is this illness is this complex homeostatic space that I was referring to when I talked at the beginning, and that is the illness. Now, I mean, last night in Nature, there was an article that came out just this week that the Japanese did a really cool deep phenotyping thing that looked at specific biomarkers. And quite frankly, even when you go with the best tools you can, I think much of what we're learning is what we as clinicians knew, you know, that sleep matters, that nutrition matters, that your body needs all the antioxidants it can get because you're under a tremendous oxidative stress when you have this illness, and it's hard to get past that. And then, as Jeff described, getting the deconditioning component out of your mix. This is not an illness that's caused by deconditioning, but getting better when you're so profoundly deconditioned is even more difficult. So, so trying to see it as the chronic illness it is, the amount of stress on your body for the years that you've been ill, and how we can try to mend you. On the good news side is the body is programmed to mend itself. This is an amazing thing that lives almost 100 years or more because it has so many repair mechanisms and so much capacity to try to recover from major insults. And I just live in awe. The more I learn about the body, I'm like, wow, is that cool? Wow, is that cool? Because there's a lot we can do by taking care of what we can, the body can pick up from underneath all that and keep on trucking. There's a concept called allosteric load where your cup is half full and you're okay. You start to overflow it and you can't keep up. But if you can just bring that cup back down to the half full, then your body can pick up the difference and start really healing. So we're trying very hard to get you to that point and let your body also do an awful lot of the hard work of recovery.
Dr. Junco, I think I have a question for you. Have you seen patients have go into liver failure from taking Chinese herbal medicines?
Not in my 20 years doing this.
Yeah, that's it's dangerous though when people do it themselves without any kind of knowledge. I have a youngest daughter that buys stuff online, and I swear to God, I saw her swallowing something she was supposed to put in the bathtub. We can't read the directions; they're friggin' Chinese. So she's so I'm like, don't do that. You could really hurt yourself. So be careful. You know what you're doing when you're doing these things, and someone like Jackie that's really, gone years to school to learn these tricks. That's really good advice to get before you start ordering your Chinese cures.
I want to apologize that we were not able to answer some question because we have a lot of personal medical information which we legally, and it's not prudent for us to give any conclusion over the internet and without know you personally. Hopefully soon we will be not constrained by pandemic and we'll see you all in office and make our therapeutic relationship even better, right?
Yes.
I'm really so proud of our team. I think that this is a great group. This was a terrific conference. I'm glad it's recorded. I think it'll be very helpful to people who come to our site. Be a part of this amazing team, and I appreciate all of y'all's amazing presentations. And you are patience to be patient and listen to us and ask these great questions. Thank you so much.
Yes, I want to thank all of our speakers again for presenting today. Lastly, I just want to wrap up this event by asking our attendees, if they can, to please donate to the INM by texting, as you see on your screen, texting NSU INM to 41444. Your gift, no matter the amount, will help ensure that the INM will continue to be a vital resource for our community and continue on with those research projects. And feel free to share that text to give code with your family and friends. In the coming days, you will receive a follow-up event email with a link to today's recording, which also can be found on the Institute's YouTube channel. And please don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and on our website at nova.edu/NIM. You can also subscribe to the INM by clicking on the subscribe button on our website to stay current on the Institute's upcoming research, new research, events, our quarterly newsletters, and much more. On behalf of the Institute for Neuro-Immune Medicine, I want to thank everyone again for attending. Please be safe and have a wonderful day.